And our first presenter.
Okay, so you might already know I'm not Annie Mazes. She's upstairs, sort of nursing a little something, and so she's trusted me with her words. Here's the fun part of the story. So she gave me her script this morning, and I was like, I'm going to practice. And then I got locked in the freight elevator storage area, and I was knocking on the door. This is not a heist. But then the person who let me in said that's what somebody doing a heist would say. So we're just going to experience this live and joyfully together, and I think that's going to be fun. So, and I feel very fortunate to share Annie's words, because I think we all know she's like an extraordinary human who just lost her voice. Oh, big slide, right. So there are some big interest authors here to be aware of, including Christina Applegate, who has written a poignant and funny memoir that illuminates the life of being a childhood star turned iconic comedic actress. The Girls Trip is the second adult novel from YA superstar author Ali Condé, whose debut adult book, The Unwedding, was a Reese pick. Also, we took her to a library conference, and she was like very fun, and she wanted to she wanted to gossip. Anyway, this is just as just as a suspenseful, and Annie didn't write that, by the way, the gossip part. That's my responsibility. This is just as suspenseful. A camping trip goes wrong when a friend goes missing. Oh no! And The Throne of Nightmares, the next spicy standalone by Carrie Maniscalco that features a library worker who gets lost in a book with the prince of the underworld. Yikes! That's literally what the book is about. Okay, so. Those are other people. Okay, good. Yes, let's talk about Little One. This book showcases excellent suspense writing, perfect for book clubs that combines psychological toying with unputdownable mystery. Olivia taps into the current cultural reckoning with wellness culture, self-improvement, and questions of nature versus nurture. It's filled with sophisticated commentary on modern womanhood and great for fans of Ashley Audrain, Emma Cline, Liz Moore, and Jessica Knoll. This is 2000. There's a screen right in front of me. I don't know why I'm turning around like a Looney Tune. And this has lovely colors. If you're ever worried about the colors, the screen in the back has it's a little more clarity. I should know this. I work in this building. Yes, 200 Monas is a debut novel about a college senior who has 48 hours to sell her recently deceased mother's surprise stash of rare pills or suffer the consequences. This is perfect for readers of Ruthie Thorpe, Miranda July, and Big Swiss. It's a wild ride of a read and an absolute conversation starter. It combines the breakneck pace of a classic heist story, like I almost had this morning, with emotional core and a swoony new attraction of a rom-com. I think I should say this, although Annie didn't write it. These pills deliver the most outrageous orgasms of one's life. Yes, thank you. Hello, recording. The next book, The Golden Boy, involuntarily retired. Annie also didn't write that. I said that, right? Okay. Involuntarily retired, Stafford Hopkins is at a loss at the next steps of his life when a letter from a childhood friend arrives, naming him guardian of 4 children he didn't know existed. A meaty and emotionally satisfying family saga with a sense of humor. This is great for character-driven novels by Elizabeth Strout, for fans of Elizabeth Strout and Ann Patchett. Ooh, here we go. Aisha is based on the myth of Morocco's warrior goddess, her strange magic, fierce rebellion, and devastating romance. Debut author Soraya Bawazawi weaves an epic tale of female rage that takes place during the last days of Portugal's colonial empire in Morocco. Perfect for fans of The City of Brass and The Stardust Thief. Okay, Annie, hopefully we're doing good. American Han is Percival Everett called this a beautiful, important novel. Amazing praise for this debut novel about a young Korean American woman who attempts to distance herself from her family, but returns when a violent act forces her to see that she'll always be implicated with her actions, and they with hers. Next book. This is something we've been talking about a lot in the office. Lily Brooks Dalton is the author of The Light Pirate. She's got a new, deeply resonant novel set 3,000 years in the future about an archaeologist who's in search of an ancient artifact, which I wish I could tell you what it is, but I won't. That could not only change her life, but upend the story of civilization itself. It's for anyone concerned about this being too sci-fi. It's purely speculative. Oh, 1 minute left. I love this. Oh my God, I'm in trouble, you guys. Like lush cottagecore. Oh wait, no, lush cottagecore was this. What's this? Oh, death. Okay, this, more death. A lot of romance. I'm in real trouble. A new Lindy West. Yes, we love her. Yes, thank you. Compost after reading. I think that's self-explanatory, but I think you could have a lot of fun with. Well, don't have your patrons do that. Okay. American Men follows the structural blueprint of Lisa Tadeo's Three Women, and it rotates between 4 characters. I think this is going to get a lot of press and be very important. I'm coming into the home stretch with Invincible. The author is committed to helping women redefine how they approach aging and vitality. I don't know what she'll do for me at this point, but so finally, that will take you to our book club catalog, and Annie curates lots of fiction and nonfiction titles that are perfect for meaty book clubs. It's got everything there has a discussion, questions, and to help start conversation. Some of them have what? Oh, recipes. I love it when a book club discussion guide has recipes, and I would love it, Chris, if you came up here. Auntie Chris.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm going to give Melissa another hand just for helping to organize everything today. I am Chris Vicari of Union Square and Company. It is great to see all your Tri-State faces once again. Some books just out. A love story, a ghost story, a starred review, and a Library Reads Top 10 pick for Allison Richmond and the Missing Pages. There's a murder mystery set against the backdrop of the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair in the Ivory City, which also got a Library Journal star. Deeper Than the Ocean is historical fiction with love and loss, the old world and the new world, plus a real-life shipwreck and long-guarded family secrets. Author Mirta Ojito was on Good Morning America just yesterday to talk about it. Mrs. Wilson's Affair, a retelling of The Great Gatsby from the perspective of an oft-forgotten character, Myrtle Wilson, Tom Buchanan's mistress. It did not work out well. Tom Buchanan's wife, sorry. Did not work out well. A diverse voice and range of world cuisine from a former competitor on RuPaul's Drag Race in Kimchi Eats the World. And Let's Party, the latest New York Times bestseller by Dan Pelosi, also known as Grossy Pelosi, the follow-up to his book, Let's Eat. On to upcoming books. The Venice Double by Jesse DeRoy. It picks up where Safecracker left off, with Duke Duquesne going to Italy with a team that will remind no one of Ocean's 11 to heist a scrap of paper with the beginnings of La Boheme written in Puccini's own hand. Of course, it's a rush job with dire consequences if it fails. Get your tumblers ready for book 2 in the Safecracker series. The Truth of Carcosa by Jacob Rollinson, who you may have seen at Library Journal Day of Dialogue or the Hachette Booked and Buzzy program, a tribute to the horror classic King in Yellow. The year is 1984, and a renowned author accepts the help of a psychotherapist to write his new book, hoping to transform his traumatic memories into a bestseller. It works, and it works so well. So well that the resulting book is more than a book. It appears to summon unholy powers, and the horrified author wants all copies destroyed. Decades later, in a future world, 3 friends become entangled in the quest to find the final copy, which not only conjures evil, but which madmen and shady corporations want for their own evil ends. Next is The Einstein Vendetta by Thomas Harding. A tough but true story here. We all know Albert Einstein. Bless you. Not much has been told about his first cousin, Robert Einstein, because the story is quite tragic, perhaps. In 1944, during World War II, Robert and his wife felt safe in Italy, but it was still agreed that as a Jew, he should go into hiding, but his wife, who was a Christian, and daughters could live safely in the villa. That's not what happened, though. Nazis smashed down their door, and when they couldn't find Robert, killed his wife and children. He had been targeted just because he was related to Albert, who left a while before that. Close to a year later, overwhelmed by guilt and grief, he he took an overdose in 1945. Thomas Harding met with Robert Einstein's great niece and collaborated with the Einstein Archives for this book that shines a light on forgotten lives and the path to post-war justice. Now for something completely different, The Encore by Juliet Eizon, good for readers who love the sweet sounds of Daisy Jones and the Six. In New York, a 16-year-old piano virtuoso named Lottie begins a quest to find the woman who gave her up at birth. Turns out she's a successful musician, her father also a successful composer. When Lottie discovers this, a chain of events occur that reunites them all and forces them on a rock tour bus for a cross-country trip. And while on the road, the three must reconcile with their choices from the past, including the fact that the birth father never knew he had a child. The Encore is both a repeat performance on the stage and in life. Next is Wife House by Sonia Walger. Annie and Hector are a married couple who let their friends and son stay in their guest house at Christmas dinner. That son's 26-year-old French tutor joins, and oh baby, that's when a stable home life for Annie splinters. Over the following year, Annie finds herself making decisions she never imagined that as a loving mother and devoted wife she could ever make. Through shifting perspectives of the characters, a messy but nuanced portrait is painted of a woman who walks away from every role expected of her and what that decision means for everyone in her life. Author Sonia Walger is an actress best known for playing Penny on Lost, but her first book, Lion, published earlier this year and was called Seductive by the Wall Street Journal. Next, Mrs. Jekyll, feminist retelling of the classic Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, follows Rosie Winter, a school teacher facing a terminal diagnosis of breast cancer and the internal struggle that occurs within her as she navigates the realities of her condition and impacts on her relationships, particularly with her husband and her sister-in-law. It's heartbreaking and hypnotic while not shying away from the realities of illness, creating a dreamlike atmosphere that dives deep into her psyche, transforming her perspective on the life she thought she was leaving behind. It has received high praise from Mr. George Saunders, called her an immensely talented young writer. The Model Patient by Lucy Ash for fans of psychological fiction. In 1960s London, a former model, feeling neglected by her new husband, begins seeing a shadowy therapist with questionable motives and soon falls under his sway. She absolutely does not want to unearth the secrets of her past, but this doctor is determined to take her back there. And as soon as she finds herself drawn to him, her interest turns to obsession, and she becomes locked in a relationship where the question of whether he is caring for her or manipulating her becomes impossible to untangle. Author Lucy Ash was called a writer to watch by Publishers Weekly, and we're watching. The Cafe of Infinite Doors, a multi-point of view light fantasy novel for any who like such or enjoy elements of Celtic or Scottish folklore. In a mythical Scotland of long ago, a goddess's mortal surrogate dies in childbirth and leaves behind a vindictive firstborn daughter who seeds in the shadow of her new divine sister. Oh boy, I'm running out of time. Millennia later, 23-year-old named Marceline leads a suffocating life and comes across a magical cafe, which is a protected portal that opens to those in need. This Blade of Ours, the sequel to This Monster of Mine, Book 2. Our protagonists must outwit an evil power with deep roots in fear and cruelty. I'll move fast here. Cocina, Puerto Rico. Chef Mia Castro has worked with top chefs Jose Andres and Thomas Keller. She beat Bobby Flay. She contacted with her abuela in San Juan during the pandemic and collected the recipes that represent her family's homeland, all for you to create the culture of Puerto Rico in your home kitchen. Chef Riley Meehan is known on social media for giving a behind-the-scenes peek at his work as a private chef. 400,000 followers on Instagram. And a little bit extra, he tells you the secrets he uses to impress his clients, not just popular flavors, ingredients, but anything that makes it from a good recipe to a really, really good recipe. Healthy with a Side of Happy by Sabrina Rudin. In her debut cookbook, she can teach you how to create healthy plant-based recipes for an attainable, healthy lifestyle at home. 100 elegant recipes that will shift the very foundation of the way you eat. Lastly, Unread, author Oliver James went viral a couple of years ago on TikTok when he said, "What's up? I can't read." He taught himself how to read as an adult. This is his full story through 21 key books that shaped and informed his experience, like The Diary of a Young Girl and The Giver. He has been featured in People magazine. He teaches us it's never too late to grow. And we have all these classics and big movies. Please check your classics in your library. Thank you. Sorry I ran over there, but all good. Please say hello to our next speaker.
This one. Good morning. Okay, Miriam, we ready? This is an exercise in all of us speaking as quickly as we possibly can. I'm Margaret Coffey. I'm Senior Director of Sales at Sourcebooks. Thanks so much for joining us today and for your support all year long. I'm looking forward to telling you about some of our amazing upcoming titles. Please follow us on social media, sign up for our well-read librarian newsletter, and access our assets on our website. All of our books are available to read on NetGalley and Edelweiss. And let's start with some fiction. Where the Wildflowers Grow is the new book by Tara Shelton Harris, former librarian and acclaimed author of One Summer in Savannah and Long After We Are Gone, which were both library read selections. This poignant story of survival and redemption follows Lee, an imprisoned woman who finds herself unexpectedly freed after a bus accident shakes her world. That's when Lee stumbles upon a flower farm in Alabama, remote enough to provide temporary sanctuary. What Lee doesn't expect is the family of misfits who have already found solace on the farm, or the farm's owner who unexpectedly makes Lee smile, makes her feel for the very first time. Slowly, she finds peace with the hard pace and soft nature of the farm, taking comfort in the life blooming around her. And maybe, just maybe, Lee starts to heal. Leah Weiss weaves characters from her two previous books, If the Creek Don't Rise and All the Little Hopes, into a new story set in the summer of 1980. The Creek, the Crone, and the Crow is the tale of two broken women and a fractured community. Kate Shaw has lived in Baines Creek for 10 years, teaching at a one-room schoolhouse on the brink of closure. A skeptic by heart, she rejects superstition and the belief in Appalachian folklore, much to the chagrin of Bertie Rokas, a lively and reclusive witch with a trove of secrets. When Bertie dies and leaves Kate her book of truths and a trunk of illuminated manuscripts and journal, Kate's thrown into a mystery. Enter Lydia Brown, a psychic who helps Kate to find renewed purpose, and the children of Baines Creek find a surprising supporter to ease their transition to town schools. And moving over to mystery, we have An Arcane Inheritance, which is a modern-day dark academia speculative fantasy with a romantic twist, perfect for fans of Babel and a deadly education, and written by Kamala Cole, who is moving to the adult space. Ellery Morgan is determined to earn her place at Warren University, a prestigious school for BIPOC students in Hartford, Connecticut. I went to school there, little note. Steeped in eerie rumors and occult secrets, the school was not there when I was there, but a strange deja vu creeps in and she discovers a tattoo with the word remember written in her own handwriting. Ellery realizes this isn't her first time at Warren. She's been trapped in a repeating illusion for 3 years. Her only ally is Hudson Graves, a legacy student who shares her distrust of the school. As they unravel the school's dark magic and hidden history, powerful enemies close in. Ellery must uncover who's controlling her mind before she forgets herself again. All the Little Houses is a new Southern thriller by May Cobb, the author of the hit Netflix series, The Hunting Wives. In the mid-1980s, the town of Longview, Texas, revolves around the powerful Anderson family. Blonde, beautiful, and ruthlessly ambitious, Charlie clawed her way to the top and will never let anyone stand in her way. But when the Swift family moves in, their back-to-nature charm captivates Longview, threatening everything Charlie has built. Determined to protect her empire, Charlie launches a campaign to crush them. Again, yet in her relentless drive to hold power, she begins spinning a web that could ensnare her own family. If you're a fan of Tana French or Frida McFadden, Imposter is the book for you. L.J. Ross's gripping thriller blends forensic insight with haunting atmosphere as a criminal psychologist is drawn into a chilling murder case that may reveal more about himself than the killer he's chasing. Psychologist Dr. Alexander Gregory wants nothing more than a quiet life, but his rare ability to understand the minds of violent offenders makes him hard to ignore, especially when a small town in Ireland's hills is shaken by a brutal murder. Reluctantly pulled into the case, Gregory finds himself confronting not only a cunning predator, but the darker corners of his own mind. Tense, atmospheric, and laced with dark wit, Imposter is a character-driven thriller that explores how far we'll go to understand and survive the darkness around us. And The Sea Gave Up the Dead is a new LGBTQ+ horror from William Friend, the author of Let Him In, a library read selection. Morwenna has avoided her family's seaside chateau by the French See, for years, ever since her uncle mysteriously vanished and her aunt was left behind, wasting away under suspicion. When a disturbing phone call forces her return, she brings her children and partner for a week's stay, but the chateau changes people. Old magic has seeped into the ground. The villagers remember what happened at the grand old house centuries ago. They remember who died and what came back. Morwenna cannot escape the feeling that unless she learns the truth about what happened to her uncle, something ancient and evil will rise, and a dark history will repeat itself at the chateau. No Sourcebooks presentation would be complete without a new book or two from #1 New York Times and global bestselling author Frida McFadden. For all the Frida Ritas out there, here's Dear Debbie, a darkly funny, razor-sharp thriller about Debbie Mullen, beloved columnist of Dear Debbie. She spent years helping women deal with selfish, lying men, but lately her own life is falling apart. She lost her job, her daughters are out of control, and her husband is hiding something. After years of preaching patience and understanding, Debbie is done being reasonable, and she is out for revenge and justice. Want to Know a Secret is a gripping psychological thriller about a YouTube sensation who has secrets hidden offline that might be enough to destroy her. April Masterson knows the secret to the perfect gooey brownies and how to make key lime squares that will melt in your mouth. But if you keep watching her offline, you may find out some other secrets about April. Secrets she'd rather you don't know. Like, where did her son go when he snuck out of the house? And what was she doing with the local soccer coach behind fog windows? And what is buried in her backyard? Over to nonfiction. Sue Aikens, star of the long-running National Geographic show Life Below Zero, takes readers on a breathtaking journey to Kavik, her remote Alaskan outpost 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle, in a story that isn't just about survival in the wild, but about surviving life for readers of Wild and Nowhere for Very Long. Kavik is an expensive tundra where temperatures plummet to -70 below zero. The sun vanishes for months, and survival often means relying on nothing but grit, resourcefulness, and determination. Abandoned as a child and left to fend for herself, Sue's early struggles taught her to face the unknown head-on, from navigating rogue bears and whiteout blizzards to rediscovering her own strength and purpose. Sue's memoir is a raw, unflinching account of what it takes to carve a life on your own terms, filled with grit, heart, and humor. North of Ordinary is a celebration of resilience, a call to reconnect with the wild, and an inspiring reminder that even in the harshest conditions, we can find our way to something extraordinary. Bottom shelf. Part bourbon history, part participatory journalism, and perfect for fans of Cork Dork and the Billionaire's Vinegar. Bottom Shelf uncovers for the first time the greatest bourbon business mystery of the 20th century. Fred Minnick, bourbon's best-known critic, dives into the dark history of Old Crow, the 150-year-old legacy brand once loved by presidents, statesmen, and novelists. Old Crow has been confined to the bottom shelf for the last 35 years after being acquired and dismantled by the Jim Beam brand. Against this backdrop, Fred also shares his own incredible personal story of a military veteran on the brink of suicide who was nursed back to health through unconventional taste therapy, and how an obsession with bourbon gave him purpose and a reason to live. And, you know, my husband has Manhattans every night, so I get this, I really do. And finally, 2 romance titles. From book talk sensation Lauren Palfreman comes the Wolf King series, a thrilling and delicious romantasy for fans of forbidden love, enemies to lovers, and slow, scorching burns. When a princess is kidnapped by an alpha, war rages between the humans and the wolves, but soon forbidden attraction starts to grow. Well, of course it does. Would we read it if it didn't? This Goodreads review says it all. If Outlander and a werewolf pack had a love child, this book would be it. If you want a book that's got just enough magic, a soft but strong heroine, alpha energy without the cringe, Scottish werewolves, kilts, vibes, emotional depth, fun narration, and a plot that keeps moving, this is the one. And I've read it, and I love it, and I totally agree. And finally, A Girl Like Her is the first in the beloved Ravenswood series by bestselling author and TikTok favorite Talia Hibbert. After years of military service, Evan Miller wants a quiet life. The small town of Ravenwood seems perfect until he stumbles upon a vicious web of lies with his new neighbor at its center. Ruth is rude, awkward, and according to everyone in town, bad news. Thing is, no one will tell Evan why. Does she prefer ritual sacrifices, howl at the moon, pour the milk before the tea? He has no clue, but he desperately wants to find out because Ruth doesn't seem evil to him. She seems lonely and funny and clumsy and secretly quite sweet and really beautiful. The more Evan's isolated, eccentric neighbor pushes him away, the more he wants her. He and all her secrets. Thank you so much for listening. Happy reading, and over to Jen.
Hi, everyone. Here's where I find out if knowing the timekeeper gets me any advantage. Come on, Miriam, we talked about this. Just kidding. It's so great to see everybody here in person. There are so many faces that I haven't seen in years, and this is really great. I'm so happy to see you all. Thank you for coming. I'm going to start with some of our favorite books, and Chris told me how to do this. Oh, it worked. Okay, just a quick reminder, we have a new website, penguinrandomhouselibrary.com. You can find all sorts of spring catalogs, lists, everything you need to know, links to Edelweiss. Please check it out. Also, happening right now, you're probably not going to LibraryCon because it's literally happening right now. But you can always check in afterwards if you need graphic novel lists. You can register, go into the environment. We've got amazing graphic novels, fantasy books, etc. Some amazing authors speaking today. And also our Penguin Random House Winter Book Festival is scheduled for December. We hope you'll register. We have a great lineup, including Tayari Jones was just as announced her new book, Kin. She'll be our keynote that day. So I hope you'll register. And again, don't forget about our morning book buzz. We've kept book buzzing just more often virtually rather than in person. So if you want more books, join us for our every other month book buzz, please. And now on to the books. The first up is This Is Not About Us by beloved author Allegra Goodman. When their beloved sister passes away, Sylvia and Helen Rubinstein are unmoored. A misunderstanding about apple cake turns into a decade of stubborn silence. Busy with their own lives, divorces, dating, career setbacks, college applications, bat mitzvahs, and ballet recitals, their children do not want to get involved. As for their grandchildren, impossible. With This Is Not About Us, master storyteller Allegra Goodman, whose prior collection was heralded as one of the most astute and engaging books about American family life, returns to the form and subject that endeared her to legions of readers. Sharply observed and laced with humor, This Is Not About Us is a story of growing up, growing old, the weight of parental expectations, and the complex connection between sisters. A big-hearted book about the love that binds a family across generations. Perfect for readers of linked stories about unforgettable characters, like fans of Elizabeth Strout's Olive Kitteridge, Tommy Orange's They're There, or Sandra Cisneros's The House on Mango Street. Okay, next up is Good People. Zora Sharaf could do no wrong. Zora Sharaf brought shame upon her family. What's the truth? It depends on who you ask. After fleeing war-torn Afghanistan, the Sharaf's family resettles as refugees in Northern Virginia. After many years of hard work, the father has become a successful businessman. Now they live in the most exclusive of neighborhoods, their growing family attending the most prestigious schools. Zora, the eldest daughter, is the apple of her father's eye. When an unthinkable tragedy strikes, everyone is left reeling, and the family is thrust into the court of public opinion. There's talk behind closed doors that the Sharaf's happy household was anything but. Did the Sharaf's family achieve the American dream, or was the image of the model immigrant family just a facade? A kaleidoscope urgent narrative told through the perspectives of those who know the family best and those who only think they do. Good People is a riveting, provocative, and unforgettable story of community, family, and identity in our increasingly divided times. Okay, next up is The Laws of Love and Logic. This is a stunning debut, perfect for book clubs, and it's from Jenna Bush Hager's new venture, Thousand Voices. In the serene town of Portsmouth, Rhode Island, Lily Webb is deeply in love with a charismatic boy, a college-bound quarterback. But their dreams of a life together are shut cut short when his passionate protectiveness leads to an irrevocable choice, one that tears them apart and leads Lily down a path of heartbreak from which she may never recover. Lily already knows the sting of loss, beginning with the death of her mother, a tragedy that left deep scars on both her and her gifted younger sister, Jane. As the years pass, Lily buries her twin griefs deep in her heart, finding solace in a new beginning with Marshall Middleton, a renowned ornithologist whose love is as steadfast as the migration patterns he studies. Yet the shadow of her past lingers. And when the boy who was once everything to Lily reappears, she struggles with questions around that terrible night in high school. Can she reconcile the wonderment of her first love with the comfort and safety of her second? Laws of Love and Logic explores love's enduring power and the human spirit's capacity for forgiveness and redemption. All right, I have to thank Kelly for giving me this one to present. There were some terms I Googled that I wish I did not Google. But Game On, as you all know, this genre is so popular right now on TikTok, everywhere. But Game On is book 3 in the New York Times best-selling Into Darkness series, following the dark rom-com sensations Lights Out and Caught Up. Tyler Newman has spent years looking for his father, and not because he wants to meet the man. No, he wants to destroy him. And he'll manipulate whoever he can to exact his revenge, including Stella McCormick. She's everything Tyler hates. Her wealth and privilege have protected her entire life, and Tyler thinks it's time she finally paid the price, whether she's ready or not. Stella might not believe in love at first sight, but loathing at first sight, no question. From the moment she sets eyes on Tyler, she knows he's the devil planning to make her life hell. Forced to play the part of his girlfriend and invite him into her family's glittering circles, Stella quickly clocks Tyler's ulterior motives. But love and hate are two sides of the same coin, and soon she doesn't know which is worse, being blackmailed by a man who wants to ruin her, or that they can't seem to keep their hands off each other. All right, I would be lying if I didn't say this is the book I am most excited for this spring. Yesteryear is a debut novel about Natalie. She lives a traditional lifestyle. Her charming farmhouse is rustic. Her husband, a handsome cowboy. Her 6 children, each more delightful than the last. So what if there are nannies and producers behind the scenes? Her kitchen hiding industrial-grade fridges and ovens. Her husband, the Republican equivalent of a Kennedy. What Natalie's followers, all 8 million of them, don't know won't hurt them. And the angry women, the privileged Ivy League coastal elite haters who call her an anti-feminist iconoclast, they're sick with jealousy. Because Natalie isn't simply living the good life, she's living the ideal, and she just so happens to be building an empire on it. Until one morning, she wakes up in a life that isn't hers. Her home, her husband, her children, they're all familiar, but something's off. Her kitchen is warmed by a sputtering fire rather than electricity. Her children are dirty and strange, and her soft-handed husband is suddenly a competent farmer. Just yesterday, Natalie was curating photos of homemade jam for her Instagram, and now she's expected to haul firewood and hand-wash clothes until her fingers bleed? Has she become the unwitting star of a ruthless reality show? Could it really be time travel? Is she being tested by God, Satan? When Natalie suffers a brutal injury in the woods, she realizes 2 things. This is not her beautiful life, and she must escape by any means possible. A gripping, electrifying novel that is as darkly funny as it is frightening. Yesteryear is a gimlet-eyed look at tradition, fame, faith, and the grand performance of womanhood. And one of my colleagues said, we bandy about the Gone Girl comps. This one delivers. This really sucks you in, and you are kept guessing to the very end. On a very different note, we're also thrilled to have Patrick Radden Keefe back on the list with another amazing nonfiction. In the early morning of November 29th, 2019, surveillance cameras at the headquarters of M16, Britain's spy agency, captured video of a young man pacing back and forth on a high balcony of a Riverwalk, a luxury tower on the bank of the River Thames. At 2:24, he jumped into the river. In a quiet London neighborhood several miles away, Rochelle Bretler was worried about her son. Zach had told her he'd gone to stay with a friend, but then he didn't come home. Days later, a police car pulled up, and 2 officers relayed the dreadful news: her son was dead. In their unbearable grief, Rochelle and her husband Matthew struggled to understand what had happened to Zach. He had his troubles, but in no way seemed suicidal. As they would soon discover, there was a lot they did not know about their son. As they set about investigating their son's death, they were pulled into a different and more dangerous London than the one they'd always known, and came to believe that something much more nefarious than suicide had claimed Zach's life. In a bravura feat of reporting and writing, Patrick Radden Keefe chronicles the Brettlers' quest, peeling back the layers and mystery and exposing the seedy truths behind the glamorous London of posh mansions and private nightclubs, a city in which everything is for sale and aspirational fantasies are underwritten by dirty money and corruption. London Falling is a mesmerizing investigation of an inexplicable death and a powerful narrative driven by suspense and staggering revelations, but also is an intimate and deeply poignant inquiry into the nature of parental love and the challenges of being a parent today. Next up is the new book by Emma Straub. When the American fantasy cruise ship set sail for a 4-day themed voyage, aboard are all 5 members of a famous 90s era boy band and 3,000 screaming women who have worshipped them since childhood. Feeling slightly out of place amid this crowd is Annie, newly divorced, turning 50 with an empty nest, and here on a lark to appease her sister. Yet when the lights come up and the idols of her youth begin to sing, something is unlocked. Call it memory, call it nostalgia, call it the chemical reaction of hormones, hope, and sexual reawakening. Between the slushy alcoholic drinks, the familiar music, and the throngs of middle-aged women acting like lovesick teenagers, Annie finally reconnects to a long submerged part of herself. By the time she meets one of the band members, not just a celebrity, but someone in need of a friend, she has accessed a new sense of possibility. In a smart and incisive book packed with laugh-out-loud reflections on fame, aging, marriage, and middle age, Emma Straub delivers a richly textured story that shows us real passion is never truly lost, that what we love makes us who we are, and that deep meaning can sometimes be found in a sea of screaming fans. And last but not least, in Go Gentle, the New York Times bestselling author of Where'd You Go, Bernadette returns to form in her most exuberant and life-affirming novel yet, with the story of one woman's cheerful determination to live a life of the mind only to have the heart force its way in. Adora Hazard has it all figured out. A stoic philosopher and divorcee, she lives a contented life on New York City's Upper West Side. Having discovered that the secret to happiness is to desire only what you have, she has applied this insight to blissful effect, relishing her teenage daughter, the freedom of being solo, and her job as a moral tutor for the twin boys of an old money family. She's even assembled a coven like-minded women who live on the same floor in the legendary Ansonia, and is making active efforts to grow its membership. Adora's carefully curated life is humming along brilliantly until a chance meeting with a handsome stranger. Soon her ordered world is upended by black market art deals, secret rendezvous, and international intrigue, and her past, which she's worked so hard to bury, lands like a bomb in her present. Inflamed by unquenchable desire, Adora finds herself a woman wanting more, and she'll risk everything to get it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Celia Madison. I am the library marketing manager at Ingram Publisher Services. And I represent a bunch of different publishers, just some of whom I'm going to talk about today. But before I get fully into new books, I wanted to share some titles that hopefully you have seen around the world. So first is The Queen of Swords. This is sort of a novel, sort of a fictionalized biography about the legendary Mexican writer Elena Garro. Elena was a socialite, an indigenous rights activist, and she was, of course, a writer. So in addition to Elena's personal story, this is also kind of an alternative history of Mexico City, and it's just a really fascinating example of the kind of global literature that we work with. The second National Book Award finalist that I'll share, Grove has one they can talk about later, is North Sun, or The Voyage of the Whale Ship Esther. It is a combination of adventure story and climate allegory told through the story of a whaling ship at the end of the 19th century. So it takes place as different technologies have emerged that have made whaling less desirable as an industry, and therefore whalers are becoming more obsolete. And this crew of veteran sailors set out on an ill-fated journey, if you're like a Moby Dick person, kind of the obvious one. And then my last one, I know spooky season is technically over, but I have to bring up Vampires at Sea, which was a library reads title earlier this fall. It is a fun, sexy read about a vampire couple. They decide to go on a cruise with the intention that it will be kind of an all-you-can-eat buffet for the two of them. And then they meet this very mysterious influencer who becomes kind of a third part of their relationship. So it's just a really funny, wild, queer romp with these three strange cruisers. So our big literary hit of the spring is The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett. It might be a little bit since you've seen her name, as she goes by Kitty, but she is the best-selling author of The Help. That was 16 years ago that novel kind of skyrocketed her to international fame, and she's back with another story about resilience and survival in the American South. So this takes place in 1930s Oxford, Mississippi, about a group of women that is trying to survive the Great Depression. We're expecting, again, major coverage of this one. I don't know if there will be a movie, but you never know. So be prepared to see this cover a little bit. And then Canticle I presented a couple of months ago, but because we moved the pub date, I just wanted to share it again. It's one of my personal favorites. If you're a sucker for a good historical story about a teenage mystic trying to fight the religious patriarchy, this one is for you. Okay, speaking of spicy romance, Diver's Heart, some of you might recognize this author's name because she is the best-selling author of Den of Vipers. So this is about a deep sea diver named Peyton. She was engaged, or she was not engaged. She was circling around the engagement to her boyfriend, Tyler, but she ultimately rejected his proposal because she realized and could not admit that she was also in love with his three best friends. So rather than deal with that, she runs away. She becomes an amazing deep sea diver and kind of just has this dark secret in her past. But the men come back into her life. She has to deal with this love pentagon, I guess. This is a really dark, really spicy romance. If you've read Den of Vipers, it's also a Why Choose reverse harem. So it's definitely for adult readers. Keep it out of the kids section. And we have a great new cover for this one. It should be on your handout. Also in romance is The Secret World of Maggie Gray. Maggie always believed that her grandmother's stories were just fun stories until she discovers an underground world of magic and supernatural just under her feet. She enrolls in a magical, historically Black university and meets sirens, necromancers, nymphs, talking cats, all kinds of weird, creative critters. She also meets a werewolf who's from a clan that is sworn to destroy hers. Like I said, it's a romance, so you can imagine what happens with the two of them. But when Maggie is unjustly accused of murder, she decides to clear her name, working with Namir, this mysterious werewolf. This is the first in a series, and it is an enemies to lovers, dark academia, paranormal, urban romance. And it'll be out in time for Black History Month, so it's kind of a fun creative read for that. Okay, This Is Not a Test came out a couple of years ago and kind of became this cult classic. As you can tell from this extremely gory and cool cover, it is a zombie story. Think 28 Days Later meets The Breakfast Club. So Sloane is a teenager. She has a pretty terrible home life. Her parents are abusive and unkind. Her sister has just passed away, and that was kind of the last person that was kind of keeping it together for Sloane. So when the zombie apocalypse hits, she's like, well, whatever, now is as good a time as any. But ultimately, she will fall into this adventure. She'll end up boarded in her old high school with 5 other teenagers, and they will work together to survive the zombie hordes that are encroaching. And I mean, compared to other high school trauma, surely zombies in the gym are not that bad. There's a film adaptation of this coming out later this in 2026, and we're calling this one the director's cut because it also includes the sequel novella. So if you haven't had a chance to get into this, like I said, this kind of cult classic now is as good a time as any. Plastic Prism Void by Violet Allen. This is kind of a hard one to describe because it's what I'm calling an all-genre novel. It is an avant-garde sci-fi fantasy romantic comedy about a magical girl, think Sailor Moon, who meets a renegade mecha, so think Gundam or whatever favorite robot is yours of choice, and they have this wacky, intoxicating enemies to lovers romance. This is from one of our newest publishers, Little Puss. They spotlight trans writers and queer experiences and are run by 3 trans women. If you were a fan of Paradise Logic by Sophie Kemp, that kind of bonkers writing, this is one that's for you. Next to it, we have Kill Dick. So rarely do I get to identify men by the women that they're married to, so I'm going to really savor the experience of telling you that Luke's wife is the name that you've heard of, Otessa Moshfegh. So the 2 of them co-wrote the script for the film version of Eileen, and Luke has written other screenplays, and this is his 2nd novel that we're kind of setting up as his breakout hit. This is a blistering, incisive thriller about Susie, who is a 19-year-old college dropout. She has nothing to do but lay around in LA in her family's big mansion until she meets Peter, who is a professor running a rehab scam. So the 2 of them go on this wild thrill ride through LA. It's a classic LA gritty urban story. Think Bret Easton Ellis times like a million. There's also a cover for this one on your handout, but Valerie Perrin's previous novel, Freshwater for Flowers, was an international bestseller. This is her ambitious new novel. Agnes is very surprised when the police call her and say, "We've identified your Aunt Colette's body," because as far as she knows, her Aunt Colette died 3 years ago and is buried in the cemetery. But when Agnes is called to investigate the body, she realized that it is indeed her beloved aunt, which raises questions of what happened over those last 3 years and who is in her grave. So this is a gripping, intricate family mystery about the lengths that women will go to protect their secrets. It's perfect for book clubs for lovers of Anne Patchett or Elena Ferrante. I normally would not make the Ferrante comparison, but it's from Europa Editions. They made it first, and they're her publisher. To the right or the left, whichever side you're looking at, I have it reversed. Elsa is a young woman trying to survive in the Weimar Republic. She is drowning her sorrows at the loss of her husband to World War I at these dance clubs. Think Babylon Berlin, Cabaret, even The Great Gatsby. During this last gasp of German freedom, she'll meet this mysterious woman and decide that she needs to confront her dark past. Okay, I feel like I'm running out of time. I know short stories are a hard sell, but if you read Dear Committee Members by Julie Schumacher, you know just how incredible and funny this woman is. Patient Female is more in that tradition. These are wacky, subversive stories about women in bizarre circumstances. They're written as syllabi and board games, just really interesting conversational different styles. If you were a fan of her previous book, which is a bestseller, you're going to find a lot to love and enjoy in that one. And In the City by Joan Silber, this is from Hagfish, which is also one of our new publishers. Their mission is to find books that were written by women that have kind of been lost or fallen out of print. And so this is like just such a classic New York novel that has fallen by the wayside. Pauline is a young woman who decides to run to New York. She wants to flee her boring humdrum past and live this life of love and art and conversation. She enters the Greenwich Village. It's the 1920s. Things are crazy and fun and exciting. And while she's there, she learns new ways to discover and define herself and resist kind of the various men trying to tell her who she is and who she should be. And last, this is one you're going to be able to grab today. It's in your tote bag, start at the end. Hopefully you remember The Last Love Note and Pictures of You, both of which were these romantic hits. This is more of Gray's melancholy, romantic, heartbreak writing. This one is a sliding doors romance about 2 soulmates that what could have happened if their life had just gone a little bit differently. That is all my titles. Please email me if you would like galleys or you want to talk to an author. Or you can go to tinyurl.com/Ingram Yes, and you can request a book directly. And next up is Grace, or not Grace? Is Lainey.
Thanks. Okay, yes, you see Grace's name there, my colleague, not feeling well, unfortunately. So I'm here with her great notes. Okay, we're like a few in. How are we feeling? Well, okay, good. So here we go. resources. So we just want to show you things we offer. Come hear from authors at our monthly Writers to Watch program. That's for authors once a month at nighttime. And then we have Galley Gabfest during the day where we do book presentations much like this one. So come hear us talk about galleys and fun things. I don't know, just like announcements. It's a fun hang. And be sure to sign up for our newsletter for up-to-date info and announcements with all the ordering changes that you're going through. We understand and we want to keep you in the loop. So we've started a new email that we're doing, you probably bi-weekly with like top titles coming out that you're going to need to know about that you don't miss. We're going to do that through the new year, at least. And so, for example, we had Hostage by Elie Sharabi, a man whose story about being held hostage by Hamas, and Motherland by Julia Ioffe, who was a finalist for the National Book Award. We'll do like in the media books as well. So be sure to sign up. We won't inundate you. We'll just send a few. And you can also get auto approved for NetGalley or Edelweiss. So just let us know, shoot us an email, and all info is on librarylovefest.com. We're switching platforms, so just know it's a very light bite of a website right now, but stick with this. All the info's there. Okay, the books. So The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. This is on sale in April. Starting off with this book we're so excited about. It's written by V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. Their writing is Evelyn Clark. It's very meta. It was very fun because we did a reveal. So not only was it a mystery, the author was a mystery. So they revealed that not long ago. And this is about 6 authors who are all, let's be honest, floundering in their careers. And they're invited to a private Scottish island of Arthur Fletch, a best-selling novelist. And when they get there, Arthur's dead. His book is unfinished. So this becomes something totally different. His agent and editor are crossing their fingers that one of these authors who we've brought will get a phenomenal ending to the final book. There's a gorgeous prize, and they guarantee the winner's career will be relaunched and that they'll be a bestseller along with the ghostwriting credit and the money. So they are jumping at the opportunity. But it's not easy. They have 72 hours and the bodies start falling. And so the catch is they have this 72 hours and they like really don't know how to live up to this and put their own spin on it. But they're all genre writers, which is really fun. So you get this kind of fun infighting, and it's just like brilliant writing about the publishing industry. If you liked Yellowface, it's got that same insider detail. Karen Slaughter said, smart, original, and completely addictive. The Ending Writes Itself is both a great locked room thriller and a brilliant satire of the publishing industry. An absolute must read. Then we have, this one's exciting. We have Galen by Walter Mosley. Such a joy to tell you about this. Jaw-dropping book. Everyone in the room, when they launched this, they were like, we have Walter Mosley. Master storyteller, MWA Grandmaster, Penn and Edgar Award winner, best known for his iconic Easy Rawlins. There's a new one from Hachette last month, and King Oliver Mystery Series. His editor, Abby West, said in a press release, with Galen, he's created characters that feel simultaneously familiar and brand new, and whose journeys will stay with me forever. It's coming of age. It's centered on one Black family, and one of which is a neurodivergent man, and kind of the found bonds that find them. It's about generational love, platonic, romantic, and it's great for book clubs. There's going to be a downloadable kit for book clubs, and we're just really honored to have Walter at HarperCollins. Starside by Alex Astor. So Alex Astor, this is out March 24th. This is her second adult novel. She's known for her YA phenom, the Lightlark series. And this is the second, she's the most followed person on Book Talk. Learned that right now. And this is the first adult romantasy. It delivers. I've read it. It is so good. And I've been bugging the editor for the next installment because it ends on a cliffhanger. But what is it about? Hundreds of years ago, a brutal war split a land in two. Starside is a realm of magic and immortals, the descendants of the gods who live in a power-rich paradise. And Stormside is where mortals fight for scraps of that magic. Every 50 years, gate opens. They can go and try to get the wealth. Our heroine, Eris, is only has one want. She wants vengeance. And she's not after the magic. She's there to kill them. And she kind of teams up with unlikely hero. Forced proximity, my favorite. So Chills, it's lush, cinematic, and it's like got this engaging magic. Could give Katniss Everdeen a run for her money. This one's really exciting. And we have the second one coming. Then we have The Foursome by Christina Baker Klein. And on your handout, you'll see the jacket that just came out. So we didn't even have it for the slide. It's gorgeous. I think Christina Baker Klein fans rejoice. It's coming in May. This is a beloved author of Orphan Train, runaway bestseller. We had her last book, The Exiles, and it's just a joy to always have her on the list. But this novel features a story about the real-life Chang and Ing bunker. We start in 1839 North Carolina. They're a sensation and a fascination. They're conjoined twins who have moved and made themselves at home. They own land, a general store, and they're looking for wives. We have Sarah and Adelaide Yates, daughters of a once prominent local family, brought down by scandal. And they kind of start seeing maybe this is their way out. It's a little odd to marry these two brothers, but maybe that's their way out. So I think what's beautiful about this book, you get this, it's true. So, and the author has it's based on a true story, but she's a distant relative of the author, one of the women. So go to her website and look at her research. It's fascinating. But I think what's really beautiful about this book, it's set against the Civil War. So you kind of have like this country divided. Can we not relate? And these brothers divided, these sisters divided, and just like this fighting in the house that is just really played out beautifully. It's going to be great for book clubs. Okay, Wisdom Corner by David Heska Wanbley Wyden. Some of you may be familiar with the author's previous novel, Winter Counts, and if you haven't read it, please stop everything and go read it. It was beautiful. This is it got a lot of acclaim, but this is the second and the sequel. You can read it separately, so don't worry. And we're brought back to Virgil Wounded Horse, desperately trying to escape his past as a hired vigilante on the Rosebud Indian Reservation. This proves hard to do when a legendary figure from the reservation is murdered, forcing him back into the life he left behind. Making matters more complicated, threats are coming from the Pine Ridge 705, a street gang from a neighboring reservation who want to expand their reach onto the reservation, and a politician who will stop at nothing to gain more power. It's a heated tribal council election looming, and as well as new revelations regarding past injustices at the local native boarding school. Stakes grow even higher, and you'll just see if he can get there before everyone else. It's such a fascinating character with a great backstory. So I love finding out more about this one, and I'm so glad we have another one from David. Okay. Yes, I skipped one. Okay, And So It Is by Jamie Lynn Sigler. So if you're a fan of The Sopranos, you're gonna want to check this out. This is Tony's daughter, Meadow. It's a memoir where she opens up about her life from early stardom to motherhood and going into what she's now gone through and how it's changed her. It ended in 2007. She was 25, suffering from an eating disorder, keeping private her diagnosis of MS, and entering a disastrous early marriage, all under the scrutiny of the public. Sharing vulnerability, she talks about how she's changed and grown from these experiences, coming at them with a clear head. So even if you're not a fan of Sopranos, I think there's a lot of entry points into this great memoir. Okay, The Children by Melissa Albert. We're thrilled to be, and this is, I think, my final one before a roundup. So thrilled to be publishing Melissa Albert's first adult novel. So we have a few of those adult novelists coming over. YA fans are now adults and they will love The Children. The new fans will flock to her after reading this intoxicating, haunting new novel. And I want to call that it's our lead read pick of summer 26. So a lead read is our in-house program where we all vote on a book for the season and we get behind it. And we're so excited. So this is our pick. Guinevere and Enos had an unconventional childhood. Children to a fantasy author, they lived in a farmhouse where they were unwashed and underfed, very different from the fantasy novels their mother wrote them into. As their mother's books gain popularity, their precarious childhood gives way to the perils of fame. One night, after a horrible fire, everything changes, and they're the only two to survive, and their mother's series remains unfinished. As an adult, Guinevere is mid-promotion for a ghost-written memoir when her estranged brother, an artist, has an upcoming installation titled Mother. As rumors swirl around a death connected to his last show, memories from her childhood begin to surface, forced to confront the questions. It's great for book clubs because there's a lot of talk about families and secrets and the nuance of sibling relationships. The e-galley is up, and this author is in New York. So if anybody wants it at the library, good to know. And then I have 1 minute left, so I'm going to quickly tell you about a couple. So Library of Fates, if you're fans of The Cloisters, when its librarian keeper mysteriously dies, 2 former classmates must race to locate a rare book from their college that can foretell your future if you confess a secret of your past, but someone's intent on protecting what's hidden inside. We have Lake Effect. This is our lead read for winter, and it's Cynthia D'Apri-Sweeney. What else do I have to say? Set in Rochester. The Astral Library, Kate Quinn, Magical Library. It's like her ode to libraries, and it's a little different for her, but of course, Kate Quinn fashion. It's got like fun historical costuming. It's Not Her by Mary Kubica. This is, we love Mary Kubica and her mystery writing. We have another Rainbow Rowell book. We're so excited. This is her sexiest one yet. Found Second Chance Romance. City of Windows, another Nadia Hashimi, mainly just to tell you about Nadia Hashimi and the Kelly Rimmer. And then on your handout, you'll find we have some authors in the Tri-State area. We just wanted to let you know so you know who's coming. And that's me. So we have, great, thank you.
All righty, folks, time for Book Buzz Part 2. You can clap for yourselves. It's good. Clap for yourselves. It's okay. Through the powers of technology, we are going to welcome very soon our colleague Maddie from Disney. Just to let you know, Maddie will speak and present her books. We're then going to have a little presentation from the good people at Library Reads, and then it's lunchtime. At that point, it's lunchtime. Without further ado, please welcome, joining us from the great state of California, it's Maddie Hughes of Disney Publishing. Hello, Maddie.
Hi, thanks, Chris.
And Maddie, if you could just say next slide, I will move your slides.
Perfect. So hi, everyone. As Chris said, I'm Maddie Hughes. I'm the school and library marketing manager for Disney Publishing. I really wish I could be there in person with you all, but I'm so glad that I can just be a little special guest. So I'm happy to share some upcoming titles from our adult imprints, National Geographic and Hyperion Avenue. So I'll start with some upcoming nonfiction titles from Nat Geo. Featuring beautiful National Geographic photography and 250 illustrated maps, the Traveler's Atlas of the World delivers essential information, fun road trips, and infinite inspiration through more than 300 spectacular photographs with signature storytelling and invaluable traveler secrets. We also have the newest book in the 100 of a Lifetime series, 100 Hikes of a Lifetime USA, which will be coming out next April. The original 100 Hikes of a Lifetime has been incredibly popular, so I'm really excited for this next installment that exclusively covers hiking in the US. Next slide. National Geographic is also known for its excellent guides to the national parks of the United States, and these two new titles are no exception. Coming in at a whopping 736 pages, The Ultimate Guide to the National Parks is a comprehensive guide full of expert advice on the best trails, scenic drives, wildlife spotting, must-do adventures, and more. Basically everything you need to plan a trip to any one of the 63 national parks in the United States. And while you're planning a trip or reminiscing on a trip you just returned from, you can enjoy a taste of the parks at home with the National Parks Cookbook. This cookbook has 100 recipes inspired by America's national parks. Some are recipes for famous dishes served at a lodge or local restaurant in or near the park, like the historic popovers first served at Acadia National Park in the 1890s, while others are inspired by the local cuisine and ingredients found in and around the parks. Think all things Huckleberry and Glacier. Each recipe pays homage to the park's unique nature and beauty. Next slide. Unravel one of history's greatest mysteries in this spellbinding narrative exploring 3 leading theories of Amelia Earhart's tragic disappearance. In Lost, former National Geographic reporter Rachel Hardigan delves into Earhart's disappearance, introducing a host of eccentric characters who have become obsessed with finding the truth. Did the great aviator crash land near the Marshall Islands only to be captured by Japanese soldiers? Did she manage to land on Nikumaroro Island but die of injury or starvation? Or did she run out of fuel and crash into the ocean? As tantalizing new evidence mounts, Hardigan and her fellow investigators descend deeper into a world of conspiracy and obsession. Through its irresistible characters and prodigious research, Lost reveals not just why we remember Amelia Earhart as a trailblazer and adventurer, but why unsolved mysteries keep us forever searching for answers. Next slide. In Grizzled, science journalist Jason Biddle taps into current research about the behavior of key North American animals. From fireflies and hummingbirds to alligators and sharks, this collection of 50 brief essays combines witty prose and vivid illustrations to reveal the secret lives and oddball behaviors of North American creatures, both familiar and little known. Effortlessly readable, Grizzled reintroduces nature lovers to species they thought they knew all about. Next slide. What will our future look like? This is a question many of us are asking, especially as we see so many technological innovations that were previously only found in science fiction appearing as reality in our daily lives. In The Next Big Thing, meteorologist and science reporter Rob Marciano invites readers to take a journey through the innovations that will change our lives for the better in 4 key realms of science: energy, electricity, infrastructure, and information. These innovations include electric aircraft, a timber skyscraper, and nuclear fusion energy. Marciano's reporting is complemented by physicist James Trefil, who unpacks the science behind each innovation. Next slide. In the bigger picture, the late producer John Landau, best known for his collaborations with James Cameron on Titanic and Avatar, shares behind-the-scenes stories about some of the greatest movies of our time and advice on how to live well while working in a notoriously all-consuming job. For him, that meant centering the things that mattered most to him: his love for family and his dedication to his friends and creative partners. When he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, he decided to write his memoir to pass on his stories and hard-earned wisdom, and this is that result. Next slide. Now moving on to our upcoming fiction titles. When self-destructive socialite Greta Davenport receives a mysterious card under her door, her life begins to change. The card is an invitation to the Found Object Society, a mysterious society that offers its members the chance to relive the death of another person whenever they want, just by picking up an object. The experience is accompanied by an addictive high that Greta begins to crave, but she can't quiet her questions about the society and its enigmatic creators, the answers to which have implications far beyond her growing dependence on the voyages. A fever dream of a novel with episodic time-traveling chapters told from multiple points of view, author Michelle Merrick's wholly original and ambitious debut opens an impeccably wrought speculative world of greed, power, and destiny. Next slide. Matt Murdock defends the Punisher in the trial of the century, the murder of the Kingpin, while by night Daredevil staves off a war of succession for the throne of the criminal underworld in Enemy of My Enemy, written by Alex Segura. This book continues the Marvel crime series that began with Lisa Jewell's Breaking the Dark and brings fans into a grittier, street-level side of the Marvel universe. Marvel crime novels build on one another but do not require an in-depth familiarity with Marvel or the other books in the series, so you don't have to have read the Jessica Jones book by Lisa Jewell to read this one. I'm personally so excited for this one. I'm not a huge comics person, but Daredevil is the exception, and this book has all the elements of a great Daredevil story. Next slide. Enthralled 23-year-old Lucy Easting has at last broken free from her grim home life and is ready to truly live. But her long-awaited new beginning at Rollins University isn't what she expected. After attending the first campus party of the year, Lucy awakens the next day with a memory block and 2 puncture marks on her neck. When Lucy begins to dig deeper, she connects with the host of a show at the campus radio station, who confirms Lucy's worst fear. She was the victim of a vampire attack and is now turning into a vampire. With nowhere else to turn, Lucy teams up with the host and another student to form a ragtag team of vampire hunters who are taking the quest for justice into their own hands. Written by YA author Rebecca Mahoney in her adult debut, this book puts a supernatural spin on the very real harm that befalls many young women at college and what it means to fight back and reclaim your own life. But while there is that darker underlayer, this book is also just a really fun horror novel and also features a sapphic romance. Next slide. In The Alchemy, New York Times bestselling author Rachel Vincent pens a dark paranormal romantasy centered on alchemy magic and those who dare harness it. When Amber Fallbrook wakes up one morning, she doesn't recognize the stone tower she's awoken in, or the beautiful man in bed beside her. She also doesn't recognize the man who barges into the room unannounced, clearly expecting to find her alone. Who are they? Who is she? Why can't she remember? As Amber begins to piece together her life, she realizes that she is a student at the Alchemy, a prestigious university dedicated to the study of alchemy. And the 2 men? Turns out they are her childhood friends, and to make matters worse, brothers. This book has absolutely everything one could want in a romantasy novel, a love triangle with two eligible bachelors, a well-realized fantasy world, and a compelling mystery. Next slide. The Sopranos meets Dungeons and Dragons when a crime boss's son accidentally becomes a crowdfunding superstar and disrupts business on the streets in Dirty 20, a new novel by author Bill Schweigart. Despite being son to Don Alessandro Fugue, local crime boss, Tommy Fugue has never had much interest in the family business. But when his father assigns him the summer job of mastering digital money laundering, Tommy figures he can list some big projects on Funder, pledge them with zombie accounts, and clean a dirty $20,000 in time for college in the fall. Unfortunately, when the role-playing game he mocked up using his mom's old artwork has been funded to the tune of $650,000 and counting, Tommy is told to turn the scam into a real game. Now, he's getting deeper into the family business than he ever wanted, but he may just be able to use the game to figure out what really happened to his mother, who mysteriously disappeared a year ago. This book is perfect for fans of darkly humorous crime fiction, and also we hope it will appeal to fans of role-playing games. Next slide. That's all for me. Thank you guys all so much for listening and for having a virtual guest. If you need to get in touch, please feel free to reach out via email. We also have several of these titles and other digital galleys available to request on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your event.
Thank you, Maddie. Always nice books coming from Disney Publishing. Thanks for taking the time, Maddie Hughes. At this time, we would like to talk a little bit about our friends at Library Reads. And here to do that is our friend from Library Reads. Her name is Eileen Maroney. Thank you, Eileen, for being here.
What's going to move my slides? The arrow? Okay. Hi. How many of you already vote for Library Reads? Oh, this is going to be so easy. How many of you use the list to do displays or things in your library or anything? That's just wonderful. I'm so happy. I am not Rebecca Vanook, but you can email her, rebecca@libraryreads.org, if you have any questions about anything. And these slides have so many words on them. You can read them later when you look at the slideshow to make sure you ordered all the books that our friends have told us about. This is what the flyer looks like that comes out the 15th of every month. And I really like it. It's really nice. It's pretty. I put it out and I make sure that I have bought all the books and put things on display. I also love reading the blurbs because they are like a book buzz for the books that we ended up voting on. And I learn everything about all the books from book buzzes and the Library Reads list, because who reads all of the books? Well, some people do, but it's not me. These blurbs are written by y'all who are helping us get books connected with the right readers. So there is great information in the blurbs and we love them. I'm waving this card around because I left one at everybody's seat, and this QR code takes you to our publisher list, which has the emails and addresses of all of our friends presenting today. So you can email them and get their newsletters if you don't already. That's another way I do my collection development, is the newsletters that I get sent. More words. If you use Library Reads, you know that's the list that the QR code goes to. You probably already use Edelweiss and NetGalley. Oh, I also gave you stickers so you can put them on your car or your water bottle. Car, water bottle. New Yorkers, right? New York. Some of these people aren't New Yorkers. We drove. And it's free to participate. And the list comes, so you have to vote by the 1st of the month. So I hope you just voted for all your December titles. I can tell you that the votes were counted in my house yesterday. I don't do the counting, but there is a non-zero number of books mentioned today on the list that is coming out November 15th. I can tell you that. We negotiated that. Don't tell Rebecca I told you that. I'm not going to tell you which ones because I don't remember. I did the deadlines. It's fiction and nonfiction, public library staff. I have a staff stack of these back there. If you have adult readers in your staff, you could just like slip them one of these cards and see if they wanted to get involved. I know that folks at my library don't do it, even though I've been talking to them about it for 10 years. But, you know, it's worth a try. And if you come to say hi to me, how many slides do I have left? Oh, look, not yet, not yet, not yet. Okay, top 3 questions. You can read that. I'll leave that up there. You got the sticker, you got the card. And if you come and tell me a book that you wanted to read or that you like to read or that you found out about today, I will give you a limited edition glasses cleaner. Because I had enough cards and stickers for everybody, but I didn't have enough glasses cleaners. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful lunch. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. We love you.
Hello, this is Melissa again from Hachette. Thanks. So thank you for it's a very lovely and heartfelt event so far. And in the spirit of heartfelt, I get to introduce our first author, Corianne Haydu. I met Corianne at ALA this summer in Philadelphia, and like within moments, you know, her publisher was like, she's going to stop by. I'm like, sure, sure. We wound up having this very deep conversation, like very deep. And we went there and it was very meaningful to me. So this is exactly what Corey's adult debut will deliver to the readers. A smart read with lots of heart and feeling. Ideal for your Claire Lombardo and J. Courtney Sullivan reading patrons. You're going to hear from Corey about mothers and other strangers. Corey is also the author of several titles for children's and young adults and lives in the Tristate, I guess now Quinn State geography. So please join me in welcoming Corey.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I was sort of trying to think about just how to start off talking about what libraries have meant to me over the years and, you know, through childhood, and particularly, of course, as an author, my books have had sort of their most vital life on library shelves, my children's and young adult novels. But I couldn't sort of find the right words. And then my 7-year-old daughter a week ago came to me and was like, I have to bring my library card to school today. And, you know, I don't want to bring anything to school because it never comes home. And so I was like, why? And she's getting weepy and she's talking a mile a minute. And I finally pieced together that her best friend had gotten her ears pierced over the weekend. And Thea, my daughter, like had to prove her own sophistication and elegance in the face of a 2nd grade ear piercing. And she had come up with the library card as the way to prove her elegance and sophistication. I know. It's like my proudest parenting moment. I can't get her to like eat a vegetable or go to bed before 10, but oh my gosh, she understood that her library card was the way to prove her ultimate sophistication. I've been writing about complicated family lives for over 10 years in children's and young adult novels. Specifically, the relationships I understand best of all, those between mothers and daughters, and also girlhood friendships. And that's where my interest has always been. And I have had and continue to have lots of stories to tell in the children's space. But about 5 years into my children's publishing career, I gave birth to my first daughter. And suddenly the children's and young adult narrators started to feel a little limiting to me. I felt like I had so much more to say about mothers now that I was one, and so much more to say about daughters now that I had one. And maybe most of all, I felt like I had more I wanted to say about female friendship now that I understood something about how vital and sustaining and really sort of urgent friendship feels in those early motherhood days. I'm also really lucky to have a childhood best friend still in my life, my best friend from childhood, Dana, and she happened to give birth to a daughter just a few months after I gave birth to my first daughter. And that felt so beautiful and synchronous and kind of impossible to me. And I've been a novelist for a really long time. So when something feels beautiful and synchronous and impossible, I feel like, oh, okay, I have to write a novel about that. Now, unfortunately for the book, Dana and I don't have a fraught relationship at this point. So I've sort of mined all of our friendship drama in my children's books, but as adults, we don't have anything to really pull from. So I had to figure out what to do with that spark of an idea, and sort of had to stop drawing from real life at that point. And I came up with a question of, what if you had a childhood best friend and you had daughters in the same sort of unexpected moment in your lives, but you were no longer in touch and you were both grappling with what happened to that friendship. And I really wanted to write about how we sort of the ways we wind around certain people in our lives and return over and over to the same places, but always with new information. And in the case of this book, that new information as these friends wind around and around each other is what it is to be mothers. So Mothers and Other Strangers is my debut adult novel, which still feels super exciting to say. I've written almost 20 books for children and teens. So this is like a huge and exciting step. And the book is about two sets of mothers. First, there is Beth Ann and Joni, who are sort of thrust together in suburbia as their daughters, May and Sydney, become fast friends on the playground. And then the second timeline features May and Sydney becoming mothers themselves, trying to understand how that childhood friendship so sort of spectacularly fell apart. Joni and Beth Ann are not the sort of friends that have that destined feeling to them. Joni is sort of a wild spirit, an artistic person, just a free-spirited type of person, and Beth Ann is much more put together and striving and sort of high-strung. And Beth Ann is quite surprised to find herself in relationship with someone like Joni, and that was really important to me because I felt like I wanted to explore the type of friends I feel like you make in new motherhood, which is one of the only times you find yourself really intimately in relationship with someone who you might have basically nothing in common with, except you have one huge thing in common, which is your kids who like to play together. And it felt like such a particular experience to be in friendship where you are so vulnerable and raw and unsteady around someone that you don't necessarily have a great deal in common with or a really strong basis for a friendship with. I could write like 100 books about Beth Ann and Joni. I find their relationship really exciting. Meanwhile, their daughters, May and Sydney, are that sort of like fateful, fast friendship that you want to try to hold on to forever. Except again, for reasons we try to uncover during the book, they have not been able to hang on to that friendship. Adult May and Sydney are pregnant when the book opens, and Sydney has fallen into a multi-level marketing scheme, and May is sort of grappling with an ex-boyfriend and trying to understand her artistic aspirations. She was like an artistic one-hit wonder in her 20s and is trying to understand what that's going to mean now that she's entering motherhood. More than anything, I think Mothers and Other Strangers is about those two kinds of friendship. One that is that like deep and profound and grounding childhood friendship that's so beautiful. And then the other type of friendship that's frenetic and urgent and also really beautiful in its own sort of unexpected way. It's about the relationships in our lives that are both really essential to who we are and also totally impossible to truly understand, which at least for me, and I think for a lot of us, describes a bit about how we feel about our mothers and sometimes about our daughters and even our spouses and friends. But most of all, I think the way we feel about ourselves and all those versions of ourselves we've been over the years. I visited my family a couple weeks ago, and I brought along a galley. I've come from a big book-loving family, and so I brought a galley of the book for them to read. And my sister-in-law was the one to pick it up first. And like everyone else in my life, she's only read my children and young adult narrators and sort of seen my take in that way. And she got about halfway through the book and sort of put it down and was like, "Wow, Corey, you write women so well." And she sounded like totally surprised. so I sort of smiled and was like, yes, I spend a lot of time with them. But I think what I meant even more than that is that I've spent all these years writing books that try to take girlhood really seriously, that try to make that time feel authentic and important. And it's been a total joy and gift to figure out how to write a book that asks the question, why does girlhood still matter once you've allegedly left it behind? And if I write women well, which I certainly hope that I do, it's because I spent, over a decade writing about the girls that the women once were. And now I get the pleasure of trying to figure out that how to connect the dots between the two and write the women they've actually become. I've gotten to live with these characters for a really long time. This is the longest I've ever worked on a book, just sort of in pieces between other contracts, and more and more as time has gone on. And I looked back in my computer to see, like, when did I start actually, like, in earnest trying to write an adult novel? And I found a file titled adult novel or whatever. And that was from 2018, which is also the year my first daughter was born. I really hope these characters surprise you and also feel familiar to you. And I cannot wait to see Mothers and Other Strangers on library shelves. And I hope that your readers come in with their very own, sophisticated and elegant library cards to bring it home to read. And thank you so much for all you do to connect readers with the books that they're going to love. And I hope you enjoy spending some time with Sydney and May and Joni and Beth Ann. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It is so exciting to see everybody here in person today. I'm Hallie Young, and I'm with Macmillan, and I am so excited to introduce Leah Rowan. It was in 4th grade when Leah was first introduced to the seminal slasher film Psycho. Several years later, Leah was in the shower one day and got the idea for her forthcoming book, Marion. What if, instead of being killed by Norm in that seedy motel, the leading lady had fought back? Marion offers an alternate history of the most famous dead blonde to ever grace the silver screen. Only this time, the knife is in her hands and she is no victim. As a fellow Hitchcock fan, I'm very excited. Welcome, Leah, and want to tell us all about it.
Hi. I kept things really simple by accidentally wearing the same dress in my author photo and the same lipstick, so no one will be confused. I just, I wanted to start by giving a shout out to all of you, to thanking you for being librarians, for keeping libraries the third spaces that we all need. My library story is that I'm now a New Yorker. I'm in Brooklyn and have been for a long time, but I actually grew up in a very small town, an agricultural town in eastern Washington state. And the town had 2 stoplights. It was like one of those, like, we got a McDonald's when I was in 5th grade, and it was truly the talk of the town. And there actually were not any bookstores there. And so my parents took us, pretty religiously, I'd say at least once a week, maybe twice, to the small library branch in our town. It was 2 rooms, one for children, one for adults, and there's a little desk in the middle that connected them. And, to me, it was the whole world. We would do the summer reading program. I would load up on picture books. My parents had a 10-book limit. I'm not sure if that was the actual library's limit or it was their limit. And then as I got older, I moved on. This is the library I first, met Agatha Christie and Mary Higgins Clark and kind of set up what we are doing now. But my other funny story is that the selection was small there, but we could request from the other branches in the county. And so I don't know if they still do this, but it would come actually in the mail in this like brown zippered canvas sleeve. And that to me is like still more exciting than Christmas, just like remembering this brown package. And you know, I never stopped reading as a kid, and obviously pursued reading and writing as I grew. And the funny part is that I never even realized until I was in my 20s that we didn't have bookstores. Like until I became an author and I started, you know, was here and going to indies and all that, I looked back and I thought, wait, there weren't any bookstores. And so basically I wouldn't be a reader today and I wouldn't be a writer without libraries. So truly thank you. It's incredible work that that you all do. Okay, so back to Psycho. So here's my question for you. Show of hands, who has seen Psycho? Okay, that's pretty much everyone. If you haven't, who has seen at least a clip of the shower scene? Yes, okay. So that's pretty much what I thought. So as Hallie mentioned, I first watched Psycho around the age of 11 or 12. I think my mom was very kind of worried. We did build up to it. We watched Rear Window, we watched Vertigo, which are classic, but like a little bit less gory. So that felt kind of like this big milestone. And she was worried that the movie would scare me. So that's why we had to kind of at least wait a little bit. Spoiler alert, it did scare me. But in a good way, you know, like in that kind where I'm like, I feel this nervousness, but I want to keep going. And so after all these years, like that, what stuck to me about Psycho was the shower scene. And, you know, of course, the skeleton mother, the I'm not even going to swat that fly line, which still like gets under my skin in a big way. And then it wasn't until Halloween in my 20s, I was living in San Francisco, my sister was visiting, and we're like, let's put on this, you know, DVD of Psycho. And I watched it in full again. And that's when I remembered what I'd completely forgotten, which is Marion Crane, aka the greatest character of all time, in my opinion, that pretty much a lot of people kind of forget because she is memorialized as just this, you know, screamer who dies in the shower. But the entire first act of Psycho is not about Norman Bates at all. He is not there. It's about her, and she's the original, like, unlikable female character. Like, she is totally messed up. Like, we open on her in a motel room with a recently divorced guy, and this is like the 60s. This is not like, you know, 2025. And he says he can't marry her unless he has more money. And then we cut to the real estate office where she works, and someone's bringing in this big deposit, and her boss just says, you know, like, here's this wad of cash, please take it to the bank. She doesn't. She leaves town. She drives off into the sunset to go get her man. She trades her car in for another, evades a curious cop, and she is really, really close. That's kind of the irony here. And then a storm kind of sends her off the highway, and she winds up at the Bates Motel. And of course, we all know the rest. Watching it in my 20s then, I truly couldn't believe it that there was this woman, this amazing character with wants and desires and agency and excitement, and that what she'd been reduced to in my memory and in so many others was just this, you know, like, and the screaming and, you know, the picture of Janet Leigh on her side and all of that. So Marion, if you didn't know, dies 48 minutes into Psycho. I know this to the exact minute because I meticulously chronicled every minute of the movie, doing research to crack my own plot. And I may have sent the spreadsheet to my friend who's an archivist because I was like, a librarian will appreciate this. And in the lead up to Psycho's release, Hitchcock was adamant that the twist was going to remain a secret. He bought up all the copies of the Robert Bloch novel. He didn't hold press screenings, something like we couldn't even imagine now. And he also would not let anyone into the theaters after the movie started. Like, he was like, I am protecting this twist at all costs. And so at 48 minutes in, the movie gives us a shocking twist that Marion Crane has died. And its success and cultural cachet ends up kind of doing so much more. Marion Crane is not just Janet Leigh who dies, you know, at the end of the first act. She becomes a blueprint for the first girl to die, the pretty blonde who sacrificed on the altar so we can all enjoy horror movies. And we see it many, many more times. We see Tina Gray in Nightmare on Elm Street. We see Annie Brackett in Halloween. We see Casey Becker, played by Drew Barrymore, in Scream. And the trope still exists. If you're gonna kill someone in a horror movie, make it a woman, make her very pretty, probably make her blonde, and make her go early. So Mary Crane was and is the model for all of this. The last 60 years of horror would look very different if we had never seen her in Psycho. But back to the shower, which is actually truly not a lie where I got the idea for this. I was there, mind wandering, shampooing my hair. I do some of my best thinking when I'm away from my computer. And I thought of that scene, which, to be honest, lives rent-free in my head, as it may live in many of yours. And I thought, wait a second, what if all this went a different way? What if she sees this like creepy, crazy guy who just comes up and is like, hi, I'm gonna murder you. And she grabs him, kind of knees him in the crotch, gets a hold of the knife, and then she kills him instead. And so that, my Marion Cage, that's kind of how she was born. And so I got this idea. I ran out, I emailed my agent, like my hair was still wet, and I'm like emailing her, and I'm like, this is this idea I had, and she's like, you gotta write this. So I did. And Marion Cage, she's different than Marion Crane. She's modern, she's living in this century, she's in Manhattan. This was important to me. She's not after a man this time. She actually wants to help her sister, who's trapped in a bad marriage, and she's very financially entrenched in this marriage. And Marion is not expecting to have this opportunity, but at the ad agency where she works, here comes a client who actually has to pay cash. And it's $100,000. And her boss says, look, I have to go take this client out for celebratory drinks. We just landed the account. Please, the Chase branch is about 2 blocks up. Please just go do this. Do me a favor. Easy, right? So she tries. She really does. She goes to the bank. She's got everything. And they're like, you're not an authorized user on this account. We can't take this. Like, go talk to your boss. Your boss has to come back. So then she goes home and she sees her sister, who she was trying to get to stay with her and not go back to the husband, is gone. And so there she is. Her sister's back with this guy. She just happens to have $100,000 just kind of like sitting in her purse. And so she, she's like, what should I do? And I think that's the interesting question. It's like, what would any of us do? I'm not sure what I would do, but if you could help someone you loved and you had this kind of serendipitous opportunity to do that, would you break the rules? Would you risk everything, including your career, if it could guarantee that the person you love most in the world remained safe? And so Marion would. So she catches a bus. Some of you might have experienced the joy of Port Authority this morning, but she heads over to Port Authority and she's like, I'm going to take a bus up to my sister. Her sister's in Saratoga Springs. And she is going to go to her sister, convince her that this money will solve all her problems, and leave. But the bus breaks down in New Paltz. She finds herself stranded, still hours from her sister, nowhere to stay. She figures, hey, I'll stay the night, catch another bus in the morning, and that's how she gets to the Billings Motel, where she meets Norm. In the prologue in my book, Marion says, you think you know how this kind of story ends, you don't. And that truly was the fun of it, letting her come under attack, letting her take the knife into her hands, letting her take the reins, and seeing what she'd do when she's standing there, shower still running, Norm is dead in front of her, and she's got the knife. Where will she go and what will she do? Letting her surprise me. It was the great joy of writing this book, because she did surprise me many times. And we'll never get to see what Janet Leigh as Marion Crane in all her glory would have done if she had gotten to hang around beyond those 48 minutes. But as far as Marion Cage goes, we can. I loved meeting and getting to know her over the time I wrote this book, and I hope you guys will enjoy meeting her too. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Rudy Martinez from Soho Press, and I have the honor today of introducing Leela Siddiqui. Leela was born in Chicago, raised in Texas, and now lives in New York with her husband. She's a digital marketing strategist in publishing. When she's not writing, she spends time worshiping her 3 very floofy cats, experimenting with vegan recipes from Instagram and crocheting. Her debut adult horror novel, The Glowing Hours, will be publishing in February 2026 from the Hell's 100 imprint at Soho Press. Leela, thanks so much for joining us. Take it away.
Hi, everyone.
everyone. I want to start by saying thank you so much for everything that you do. Without the resources of my local library branch, I could not have written this novel. I needed all the help I could get, so I just want to thank everyone. The Glowing Hours is primarily about the summer that Mary and Percy Shelley spent in Geneva with Lord Byron and his personal physician, John Polidori. But it's written from the perspective of the Shelleys' Indian housemaid, Merunissa. As a horror-loving gal, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was a huge gateway into that world for me, especially reading it as a young person, and especially the lore around it, that she had been away with her lover, staying in this villa in Geneva, and a nightmare is what gave spark to that story. I felt like I wanted to do something with that origin story and how the horrors of the world around us may inspire what we write. What if the villa was actually haunted? And not just by the ghosts of what used to reside there, but our own demons. Mary Shelley was 15 when she met Percy Shelley, who was already married, and he convinced her to run away together. It was not a happily ever after. She spent a lot of that time alone because Percy was always in debt and would go into hiding to dodge his creditors. And then her first child passed away after a few weeks of being born. So that definitely created a strain on their relationship. Percy just wasn't there for her, and this happily ever after that she had wanted didn't come true. In fact, I don't think it ever came true for her. So then we get to the summer of 1816. Mary is carrying all of this with her and bringing it with her into this villa. What sort of hauntings would that produce? That's what I wanted to explore. I feel like general horror readers will be interested in this book, but also people interested in the history of horror and people who are generally as enamored of these romantics like Lord Byron, Percy Shelley, and Mary Shelley as I am. On choosing to write it as a Gothic horror novel, it's such a perfect setting. A young woman experiences a horrific nightmare after an evening spent telling ghost stories while she's in this windswept villa. And I mean, how Gothic is that already? The year 1816 that Mary and Percy Shelley, along with her stepsister Clara Claremont, Lord Byron, and his physician John Polidori, holidayed in Geneva was also called the year without a summer. A volcano had erupted in Indonesia, which lowered global temperatures. It rained so heavily that summer that they ended up staying indoors for large parts of their vacation. And so you can imagine this young 18-year-old is isolated in this villa. She's already at odds with her stepsister and at times her lover. And while the sky darkens outside and the rain batters against the windows, even in true life, it's the perfect Gothic tale. And of course, I've added extra tropes of the Gothic in my novel. Not only do we have the dark and foreboding foreign locale, we also have some romance, some isolation, we have the damsel in distress, the nightmares and ghosts, and most importantly, a touch of madness to it all. This was a summer vacation that brought Frankenstein, Byron's Childe Harold, and Polidori's vampire to life. I also wanted to explore who these people are and their histories from a different point of view. History is expansive and it's not limited to one location. So I wondered what else was going on in the world in 1816. That was when the British were just starting to assert economic dominance in India, which would later open the doors to colonialism, which all culminated in independence in 1942. How would those early seeds of colonialism impact the Shelleys and Byron? Surely it was covered in all the major newspapers back then. People talked about it over tea and dinner. So wanting to center the story on my Indian protagonist, Merunissa, and viewing this origin story from her point of view gave us some context just beyond Regency era England. And also showed how her outside perspective might view this collection of poets and writers rather than the way we view them now. What helped was all the mounds of research I had to do, not just in the lives of these people, but also what was happening historically, both in England and India during this time. I took time off work. I spent hours in the New York Public Library Schwarzman building, so shout out, in the quiet rooms that are only for reading. That branch has the Pforzheimer collection of Shelley and his contemporaries, which has all the writings and memoirs of all the important romantic poets that were in his circle. And that also included John Polidori's memoir. And since a lot of these writings were no longer in print, I would essentially check them out, read them right on site. I'd put in my request, retrieve the books, grab my favorite seat, and I have a favorite seat in that reading room, and get comfy as I dove into research. I'm really sorry, I did sneak in snacks. I had to. I'm a snacker and I have to snack while I'm reading. It just happens. The Pforzheimer collection was an invaluable resource and it allowed me to get into the mind of these historical figures. What I found curious in my research was when I read the journals of the Shelleys and Polidori, they seemed to just glaze over that summer and all the time they spent in that villa. Polidori barely mentions it. He focuses more on all the balls and soirees he was going to in Geneva. Mary and Percy Shelley actually combined their diaries into one large travel journal, and even there they skip over the summer. Lord Byron is mentioned just at the start of that vacation. Mary refers to him fondly as Albie. I assume just a combination of his initials, LB. But she doesn't disclose that nightmare she had until it's written into the introduction of Frankenstein. Later, I learned that Mary Shelley's daughter-in-law, the wife of her only surviving son, took liberties in censoring parts of that journal to protect her mother-in-law's legacy before they were published. So it definitely sparked my curiosity what was taken out, especially during this pivotal time in her life. And while a lot of his personal letters have been collected into books, unfortunately, Lord Byron did write a memoir, but he didn't want to send it to his publisher until after he died. Well, he sent it to John Murray, who read it and thought it was so disturbing that he immediately threw it into the fireplace. I know. It was too salacious to go into print, and I really mourn that loss because that would have been a fascinating look into a very dynamic and beloved yet very flawed person. So I had very little to work with when it came to that summer, but that was totally fine because it allowed me to stretch my imagination and fill in the blanks. Before I wrote this novel, I gave Frankenstein a reread, which I often do every now and then. Every couple of years, I just pick it up and read it again. And I was struck with the character of Safi, who Frankenstein's creation becomes enamored with. As you might recall, after his exile, he spies on this little family called the de Lacys. Safi appears to them. She's in love with Felix de Lacy, and she had known him when he helped her father escape from prison. Her father then turned on Felix, and she ran away to seek out the man she loves. She's a Turkish woman with Arab ancestry, and I often wondered how Mary Shelley was inspired to write such a character into her novel. She's this beautiful outsider with a tragic story who's accepted into the de Lacy family regardless of her ethnic background and her father's betrayal. Her redemption and acceptance is what Frankenstein's creation so desperately wants for himself. And the de Lacys become this perfect family unit, which Frankenstein's creation also really wants for himself. And so I thought, with such a powerful portrayal of this foreign character, what could have inspired Mary to write this character? And that's also where my main character, Maranissa Begum, comes in. Years and years ago, I read a book by William Dalrymple called White Mughals. It was a story of a British soldier who, in quotes, married a noblewoman. She was actually a child in her mid-teens, and unfortunately, it was something her family encouraged, and he had children with her. This all happened in India during the late 1700s and early 1800s. They were never legally married, at least in the Western sense, and he eventually took her children away from her and raised them in England. He remarried, took his children and wealth with him, leaving her destitute. She loved him, and she died alone with that burden. And this was not a unique story. This was something that happened quite a lot with this influx of British men coming to India just on the dawn of British colonization to seek their fortunes, which once acquired, they'd either desert the families that they had created, or in the rare case, bring their family over with them to England. And that's where Maranissa comes in. In a similar way, her father was a British merchant who came to India, as many men like him did, found his way into the life of an Indian noble family, and then took his son away to raise in England, while leaving Maranissa and her mother abandoned. There were many Maranissas that existed, and I wanted to give life to the story. I spoke earlier to the idea that the horrors of the world around us may inspire what we write. In my novel, I juxtapose Mary's life with Maranissas, and that the horrors of their identities, of who they were and the world that they inhabited, inspired me to write this novel. Maranissa, like Frankenstein's creation, also wonders what the meaning of family and home are for her. As a South Asian woman, I wanted to bring in my ancestral history and weave it into the history that we might already know, of people we already know, of an origin story that we're already aware of, and then challenge you and ask you the question, how about we hear it from someone you'd least expect? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maureen Meekins with Penguin Random House, and I am thrilled to introduce Kanwen Shu, a debut author whose writing has appeared in the Washington Post, the Kansas City Star, Chalkbeat, Arrow Magazine, and more. She's a graduate of Columbia University, and her first book, Boring Asian Female, is coming out in April 2026 from Berkeley. Please join me in welcoming Kanwen.
Hello. I am so happy to be here today. Libraries have always meant so much to me. I grew up in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Idaho, so there wasn't a lot to do. But I did go to the library every week, and I really, really loved the summer reading challenges. There was this one where every time you finished 20 minutes of reading, you could fill out like a little fish in this coloring sheet. And then when you filled out an entire row, you were entered into a lottery to win a book bag. And I really wanted this book bag. So I knew they did the lottery drawing once a week. So instead of getting my lottery tickets each time I went to the library, I waited until I had colored in a lot of rows so that I could enter multiple lottery tickets in a single week. And then when the librarian called me to tell me that I had won, I was so excited that I accidentally hung up on her. So, but anyway, Boring Asian Female is my debut novel. I started writing it about 3 years ago. But right now I'd actually like to take a step back and go 10 years back when I was 18 years old and I gave a TEDx talk for TEDx Boise. The talk was about Asian stereotypes and it went quickly viral. It was my first taste of fame and I have no desire to be famous ever again. But when I think about the speech, I can't help but think about how much has changed in the past 10 years since I gave it. I remember when I was in high school, and that was when I had given the speech, there just wasn't a lot of popular representation of Asian Americans. I personally didn't read a lot of books about Asian Americans, and in terms of TV, I remember there was Christina Yang from Grey's Anatomy, there was London Tipton from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and for the media that I consumed at the time, that was it. So I think that at the time when I did speak about Asian stereotypes, the speech went viral because the topic hadn't quite entered the public consciousness yet, but it had started to. So in the past 10 years, I've paid very close attention to how Asian Americans are represented in the media, not just in books, but in TV and movies. And I continue to be very impressed with the stories that are becoming popular. A lot of these stories have centered on the otherness that Asian Americans have felt. For example, it's getting made fun of for our school lunches, or getting called slurs, or being fetishized, or being considered less than. These are stories that allow people to empathize with Asian Americans because we all know, regardless of who we are, we all know what it feels like to be left out, and we all know what it feels like to be less than. But as I started thinking more about the representation of Asian Americans in the media, I felt drawn to a part of the experience that I felt like wasn't talked about as much, and that was this intense, cutthroat pressure to conform. It was this pressure to chase the most materialistic notions of success with little room to really be individuals. I have been guilty of this as well. When I was in college, I competed on the mock trial team. This was not high stakes, it was a school club, and you didn't make any money if you won. It wasn't like graduate schools would want to accept you because you were really good at mock trial. It was literally just a competitive activity. And it involved traveling around the country where you, as your team, as part of your school, you would argue cases against other teams from other schools. So in the middle of our competitive season, my coach, Amy, told me that I would be doing pre-trial from now on. Pre-trial is the first chance a team gets to speak during the round. And she said that I had to do it because pre-trial is a really good way to get an unlikable personality out of the way. I was very good. I was very close with my coach, Amy, so I wasn't offended, and I knew this was a problem for me, so I really wasn't offended. But basically what happened was that I came across as very ambitious and very competitive, and I was unlikable because I was really obnoxious. So and all of that occurred because I really wanted to win this very, very low stakes competition where I would make no money and not get into graduate school even if I won. But it was kind of my own antidote to feeling overlooked and ignored. I felt like if I won, then people would have no choice but to see that I mattered. Well, so going back to, the representation of Asian Americans in the media, I can understand why we wouldn't want the first blockbuster stories to be about my type of Asian American, for lack of better wording. But you didn't want the first impression of Asian Americans in popular media to be super unlikable, cutthroat, and status driven. But when I started writing this book, I felt that culturally maybe we had succeeded in putting the sympathetic, likable Asian American characters into the spotlight. And I thought maybe we were ready for a different kind of character. During a panel that I attended at the New Yorker Festival a few years ago as an audience member, I got to hear Sandra Oh speak, and she said that the most important thing when creating art was to tell the truth. The main character of Boring Asian Female is not me, but through Elizabeth, who is status-driven, competitive, I felt like I could tell the truth about the ugliest parts of myself. So similar to college-aged me in mock trial, Elizabeth gets her personality out of the way from the start. She's aggressive, she's cutthroat, she's definitely a tryhard. She's not sympathetic, and this was actually intentional. I didn't want to make her too sympathetic. I didn't give her some traumatic experience in her past. She had difficulties, but she didn't have anything that could justify her behavior. Most of her problems are self-inflicted, but because of all of these things, to me, she feels intensely real. And in writing this book, I felt like I was telling the truth. So thank you very much for having me here today. It means so much to me to be here, and I hope that you will give my very unlikable protagonist in Boring Asian Female a chance. Thank you.
Please say hello to Golda Rademacher from W.W. Norton and Company.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming in person. I'm Golda Rademacher. I'm the Library Sales and Marketing Director for Norton. Very excited to be here. This has my contact information and all of the publishers that we work with. We are thrilled to have 6 titles from Norton and Live Right and 1 title from New Directions on the long list for the Andrew Carnegie Medal for Excellence. Yay. And now I'll go through some of our winter titles. So Evelyn in Transit by best-selling author David Guterson is about defying expectations, hitting the road, and seeking the right way to live. Evelyn has always been a misfit. She's easily bored, unsuited to life at school, and asks odd questions about faith and time. Seeking to be true to herself, she hitchhikes across the American West, taking odd jobs, but then eventually she does have a son and settles down. 5 years later, a trio of Buddhist lamas show up at her door to announce that her son Cliff is the 7th reincarnation of a recently deceased holy man. The lama's visit sets off a family crisis and a media firestorm over Cliff's future. Full of surprising humor and luminosity, Evelyn in Transit delivers insight and compassion about humanity's strivings for transcendence and what it might mean to live the right way. Next up, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel is a bioethicist, health policy expert, oncologist, and he was an advisor to Presidents Obama and Biden. And he's Rahm Emanuel's brother, if you remember him. So in his new book, Eat Your Ice Cream, he cuts through the noise with good humor, giving readers just what they need. Simple, high-impact, evidence-based guidelines on such issues as alcohol consumption, food and nutrition, exercise, sleep, mental acuity, and social engagement. He resists the tide of the latest trends to extend life at all costs. So Eat Your Ice Cream helps us consider which lifestyle changes are worth making and how to most easily implement them for healthier and happier lives. Graham Robb is a historian who loves to walk and ride his bike all over to get a real feeling for the places that he is writing about. In The Discovery of Britain, he explores Britain through the ages. We follow Robb as he travels along the warpaths of long-forgotten kings, through ancient hill towns, and down the ghost trails of Roman and Saxon streets. Robb recounts the epic stories of wars and conquests, of feuding kings and rebellious peasants, of innovations and upheavals, from the creation of Stonehenge to the dawn of the railway, from the advent of multiculturalism to the recent political earthquakes. He gives you a social, political, and geographical history of Britain that is panoramic and intimate, poignant, and entertaining. And there is also a notes for travelers section in case you feel inspired to go yourself. So I hope some of you remember Heating and Cooling, which was one of my favorites when we published it in 2017. That book introduced the concept of the micro-memoir, which is kind of a cross between poetry and memoir. In her new book, The Irish Goodbye, Beth Ann Fennelly uses her humor and insight to explore family, marriage, motherhood, place, and coming of age. Some of the pieces are just a couple of lines long, and some of them are several pages. Full of humor and heart, The Irish Goodbye is a record of the interstitial interactions, like encounters with strangers, quirky observations, and unexpected flights of fancy that make up a richly lived life. Every exit brings you home, pulls you into the story of Jack, who is living a double life. On the one side, he's a flight attendant that one of his coworkers crushes on. And on the other side, he's married to a traditional Muslim wife and trying to keep the peace and help out the residents in their Chicago condo building. All that anyone truly knows about Jack is how readily he sacrifices himself for his embittered neighbors. The novel weaves past and present, generational trauma, the intensity of family loyalties, and relationships during wartime into an allegory for the wounded world we all share now. And I hope you find what you're looking for is the second book from our well-read Black Girl Books imprint. The cover is in the colors of the Eritrean flag, and the eyes are looking to the future, the present, and the past. This debut novel follows 3 women living in Washington, D.C. in a tight-knit immigrant community who have been displaced to the United States due to war in their home country of Eritrea. At a time when asylum seeking is facing heightened political attention worldwide, this book offers readers an intimate human portrait of the effects militarized conflict has on individual lives, and it highlights a country rarely explored in contemporary literature. Then from a popular cartoonist comes a graphic memoir that traces the sometimes harrowing journey through medical school and residency. In See One, Do One, Teach One, Grace Ferris combines her passion for illustration with her vocation as a doctor. The book chronicles Grace's path through medical school and residency. Readers watch Grace confront the heartbreaking realities of caring for patients, but Grace also discovers moments of joy, making her first correct diagnosis, finding kindred mentors, and when she least expects it, falling in love. Intimate and insightful, See One, Do One, Teach One captures the human side of healthcare, an empowering and entertaining addition to the conversation around modern medicine. We're also very excited to bring Jan Martel to Norton. His new novel, Son of Nobody, is a brilliant retelling of the Trojan War from two commoners, an ancient soldier and a modern scholar. The story is told in a two-part structure, with a modern scholar commenting on the ancient epic. The book grapples with questions of ambition, family, and responsibility in both the ancient and the modern worlds. And you should give this to your fans of Madeline Miller and Emily Wilson. Empathy Takes Action is written by an autistic therapist. Amy Cliff draws on scientific research, case studies, and her own experiences to not only thoroughly debunk the myth that autistic people are incapable of empathy, but to propose a radically inclusive new definition. She says empathy is something you do, not something you are, meaning it's something we can all get better at with practice. You can use the lessons in the book to overcome common barriers to empathy, strengthen your empathy muscles, and build stronger connections, whether you have autism or not. This paradigm-shifting book teaches us how we can all build deeper, more authentic connections. NPR's popular Planet Money podcast is now a book. For their first ever book, longtime contributor Alex Mayasi and the hosts of Planet Money present brand new stories and insights gathered from more than a decade of reporting that reveal ways AI might help you or replace you, demystify dating markets, and show how pro sports' dumbest contract holds the secret to building wealth. Taking readers on adventures to a smartphone factory in Patagonia, a raisin cartel in California, and an indigenous reserve in Canada that might just have a solution for the housing crisis, Planet Money shows how economics shapes our world and how we can harness key principles to make our own lives a little richer. And finally, I have something for all the book lovers out there, which I assume includes all of us. The Never Ending Book is an illustrated novel that has been a bestseller in Japan. An aged, near-blind, book-loving king sends two of his subjects out into the world to learn about unusual and magical books. 1 year later, they return to tell the stories they've learned. It delves into all that a book can be, forming an enchanting compendium that reveals the ways in which we interact with books and the importance they hold in our hearts. And there is a little bit of a twist at the end. The editor called it Charlie Mackesy meets Studio Ghibli. So you can find our catalogs on Edelweiss. We keep adding more digital ARCs as soon as they become available. Our summer 2026 catalog is now available on Edelweiss, and that QR code is on your handout. So thank you all for listening, and reach out if you need anything.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to see all your faces. All right, I am Lynette. I'm with Chronicle Books. Let's go ahead and jump into spring season, starting with the Madman's Orchestra. Let us go backstage with author Edward Brooke Hitching as he takes us on a bizarre tour of the weirdest stories in the history of music. So think of the Madman's Orchestra as a Ripley's Believe It or Not of curious tales, mad professor musicians, and unusual instruments lost in time, all the way up to the future of compositions by AI. I know we all have opinions about that one. I should have led with this slide. I'm going to do that next time. Get the answers to the questions you've never thought to ask, such as which composition requires 4 helicopters and a string quartet with strong stomachs? When should you feed your piano hay? Yes, I said piano hay. And what does the cat organ sound like? And is it any more pleasing to the ear than the hog harmonium? So get ready for funny and fascinating facts and so much more. And for those of you who can't live without a playlist, there's also a song list of obscure music, perfect for those who love a more underrated bop, shall we say. All right, will this make you happy? For all you fans of Nora Ephron and Nigel Slater, this culinary memoir is for you. It's about one woman's year-long journey of rediscovering her appetite for pleasure and the joys of meaningful work. And she takes you on that journey through stories and baking recipes. So when author Tanya Bush was in her 20s and she was feeling a little adrift, she was unemployed, uninspired, stuck in a long-time relationship that had lost its spark, Well, one day, just to do something, she decided to bake a cake. Well, that cake was an unmitigated disaster. It was gooey in the center, totally underbaked, but she found herself deliriously happy. So think flour in your hair, sugar under your fingernails, and that hard-earned satisfaction of seeing a task through. So she was absolutely transformed. She went from disaster cake baker to the co-founder of Cake Zine and the pastry chef for the Brooklyn-based restaurant Little Egg. She's also a contributing writer to New York Times Tea Magazine. So in the age of doom scrolling and AI, there's a collective hunger to go back to doing analog things. Will This Make You Happy is for those who don't mind a cookbook that's messier, more experimental, and a little more honest than your average cookbook. Okay, so I have thoughts about that whole, I think it's called hot girl dinner concept. But there is definitely something to the idea of preparing simple, sophisticated snacks when you need to pull something together real quick. To answer the call, author Anna Hazel leans into the luxury of fancy snacky foods with 50 recipes, including salt and vinegar chips with creme fraiche and trout roe, whipped feta with burnt honey, shrimp butter and cucumber sandwiches on brioche, and a whole lot of other recipes whose names I can't pronounce because it's that fancy. I know all these sound too fancy to be true, but the book starts out with party prep wisdom from stocking your pantry to building a menu, and I did take a look at these recipes. Full disclosure, I do not enjoy cooking. I judge a recipe first by the number of ingredients and then by the number of steps involved. So, as you can see here, the recipes are on one page. There's a lot of white space. Half the copy is some personal anecdote or other, so this one gets an enthusiastic 5 stars for me. If you haven't yet seen the Instagram account Art But Make It Sports, you must visit Post Haste. LJ Rader pairs images of moments from the sports world with their fine art doppelgangers, and we're excited to publish a collection of these sports and art pairings. It's got some of his greatest hits, but also brand new content. So is that Caitlin Clark posing for a portrait during the 2024 WNBA draft, or is it Judith with a head of Holofernes by Charles Mellon? The answer is yes. And looking at them both, you might find, maybe interconnected themes of beauty, strength, and determination. Or you can just look at these images as a funny way to bring fine art appreciation to the masses. Amazingly, the author is a self-taught art aficionado. He works in sports, but his grandmother had instilled in him an appreciation for fine arts. He does not use AI. He works off his encyclopedic knowledge of the art world and his personal notes. He loves a challenge and said art gets him out of the house. Okay, crafting for a cat. So no one told me to market this book. I'm doing this for me and for you. I didn't know I needed a cat book in my life, cat craft book, but here we are. Anika Hines is a DIY content creator known for her playful, budget-friendly projects that turn everyday materials into fun things, such as, I know you're wondering, matching friendship, kitty and me charm necklaces, sparkle name tags, and strawberry cat scratchers. To help along the way, each craft is rated on a paw system to indicate the difficulty level. 1 paw, super easy. 5 paws, you better roll up your sleeves. Sadly, I myself am allergic to cats, but I work in publishing, so I know some cat people. You might be one of them. This book is a joy to read and chock full of gift ideas for all my cat owner friends out there. Okay, so here's a history, how-tos, and recipes for anyone who believes everything is better with butter. So in this charming book, you'll find butter's curious history, fun ways to serve butter, collectible butter accessories if you love merch, tips for buying and even making butter, and its ability to transform the most humble foods, even a day-old muffin, into something revelatory. And of course, there are recipes. Our design and editorial team worked very hard to create an homage to all of this golden goodness, as this bringer of joy rightly deserves. I just had to share because we all love this one so much. Pickled City. I'm glad we all ate lunch already. Take a glorious deep dive into the briny history of the iconic New York pickle. Pickled City is a playful and funny love letter not only to pickles, but also to immigrant New York City itself. So in this unique illustrated biography, you'll get profiles of immigrant families and their iconic companies like Katz and Heinz, the stories behind New York's more recently recognizable stores and brands, including Gus's Pickles, Pickle Man, Pickle Guys, Russ & Daughters, and Katz's Deli, a survey of historical pickle peddler stands and stores across the Lower East Side. And it is all illustrated with fabulous images, everything from family photos and newspaper clippings to street photography and food arts. Also, fun fact, can you guess how many views that hashtag pickles has on TikTok? There are more than 9 billion. That's how many. So the book unpacks why the pickle industry is not only surviving, but thriving. So consider this gem to be your doorway into a hidden world of family stories and economic contributions that help shape New York's cultural, culinary, and literary foundations. Okay, illustrator Cat Will's client list has clout. She's a go-to for everyone from the New York Times and the Washington Post to Spotify, Doc Martens, and the Brooklyn Public Library. So now she's here with a poignant graphic memoir featuring portraits of women and their unbreakable bonds they share with their animal companions. Whether they live alone or in a couple or family setting, or their featured animal friends are dogs, cats, guinea pigs, horses, even bees, these personal stories are illustrated with great love and care. Recent studies show that most pet owners are women, and in bigger households, the women often take on more responsibilities, caring for family pets. We won't even talk about the cat lady thing here. Unconditional is sure to resonate with anyone who has ever felt transformed by a relationship with their furry or furless friends. Florfowl's Almanac, author Lauren Work owns The Farmer's Daughter, a floral shop in Pittsburgh. Her work has been featured in Real Simple, Design Sponge, Drew Magazine, and by Free People. She has written a love letter to florals with beautiful, beautiful illustrations by artist Jessie Evans. Not only does she spotlight 50 different flowers, she shows how to harness flower power in crafts, recipes, remedies, and more. Another feature I love about the book is that she spotlights special flower shops across the U.S., including an overview of their vibe and a mission statement, as well as reflections from each owner. So maybe you're a gardener, a decorator, a crafter, just a lover of flowers. There's something for everyone with this book. It celebrates the joy, practicality, and magic that flowers bring into our world. Okay, last one. This is just a sneak peek. Cake Picnic started with a few friends looking to return to meaningful connections in a digital and post-pandemic world. They got together in a park on a sunny day and ate cake, as one does. The now viral Cake Picnics are joy-filled gatherings where each attendee brings a cake to share with friends old and new. Its immense immediate popularity inspired founder Elisa Zunga to take her picnics on the road, traveling from LA to New York and beyond. And when she realized she couldn't bring Cake Picnic to everyone everywhere in the world, she did the next best thing. She wrote this book, and that is coming in May. So that is it from me. My contact info is on the slide. Please do contact me. I would love to hear from you all. Thank you.
Hello. I'm Morgan Intricate. I'm the publisher of Grove Atlantic. I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for coming. And I'm going to tell you about a lot of books. Our fall list, which is behind me, I want to first thank you for Heart the Lover. It was number one #1 ALA pick for October. And I hope you were able to get copies despite Baker and Taylor closing its doors about 2 days before October. So we've got another great book I couldn't resist bringing. This is The History of Mexico, 6 years in the works. First time in 30 years, a big, full trade book, 500 Years of Mexican Histories by Paul Gallagher. I hope every library can have a copy for it. It's a great, important book. It will be in print for the next 30 years. And then Karen Peary's sixth book in this Karen Peary series by Val is her best novel in 10 years, I think, coming in December. And then there's Robbie Almadine's book that's a finalist for the National Book Award, True Story of Raza. For the winner list, Jeanette Winterson has written what we think is the best book of hers since Why Be Happy When You Could Be Normal, her brilliant memoir that we published now about 15 years ago. This is a book that takes partly through Jeanette's story, her life through her relationship with stories and with narrative. And looking at during these dark times, though I must say the times are a little brighter after Tuesday, she tells the role of stories in our lives. And it's a beautiful, powerful book, sort of framed around Scheherazade and 1001 Nights and the role of Aladdin and Scheherazade and stories and narrative. It's coming in January. Where's the button's right there. I can probably handle that. Next, I don't know if you know Zhilao Guai, who won the NBCC Award for 9 Continents. This is a novel of hers called Call Me Ishmael, which is a retelling of Moby Dick from a woman's point of view. And it was compared by The Guardian when it came out this fall in the UK to Demon Copperhead and to James by Percival Everett. It's a wonderful book by a brilliant major international writer. I think by far her most accessible book yet. The next book is a great book that I love pitching. It's called The Hitch. and by Sarah Levine. It was just selected as an Indie Next pick by the independent booksellers. Opens with Rose, who's an artisanal yogurt maker, lives in Chicago, unmarried and doesn't have any children, but she loves her 6-year-old nephew, Nathan. His parents are going to Mexico for a week, and she's thrilled that she's going to keep Nathan for a whole week. So first day, they take the big Newfoundland dog for a walk in the park. The dog loves Nathan. A little corgi comes up and starts nipping at his ankles and kind of scares him. The Newfoundlander crunches the corgi and kills it. The spirit of the corgi leaps into Nathan and is inside Nathan for the rest of the book. So Rose is then dealing with, how do I get this dog out of my nephew before his parents get home? It's a hilarious, hilarious book. I mean, it's about animals and human beings and family, and just it's really, really, really wonderful. And if you want to laugh, pick it up and start it. Because I mean, the dog dying happens and she later goes out to try to find out who owned the dog. Turns out that the owner hated the dog because the dog was really grouchy. The dog's named Hazel. Anyway, it's a great book. You'll enjoy it, and I think a sleeper off of our winter list. So that one. All right, 2 books of nonfiction. Carrie Gibson, I published for about 15 years. She's done award-winning books, Emperor's Crossroad about history of the Caribbean, then an incredible book called El Norte about Hispanic America. We commissioned this book about 6 years ago, and it's to tell the story of the Great Resistance. You know, there are the ideas at these slave revolts. The history of the enslaved peoples are told by the enslavers, and there's the idea of, okay, there was a revolt in Haiti, there's a revolt in Nat Turner, et cetera, et cetera. What Carrie has done is gone deep into the archives, deep into the research, and told 500 years of the history of enslaved peoples resisting slavery every day, every week, every month. It's an incredibly powerful and important book. I think it should be shortlisted for prizes. It's a big overall narrative of all the resistance against slavery by being enslaved by enslaved peoples across the world, across the Western Hemisphere. It's just the Western Hemisphere. The next book is, I don't do a lot of financial books. I did a book called The House of Morgan years ago, I'm sure you've heard of. I did a book with Edward Chancellor, who's a brilliant financial historian. And it turns out Edward was working with Jeremy Grantham on his memoir. I'm having lunch and he goes, would you be interested in looking at this? I go, I don't really do that kind of thing. And he goes, no, you should read these pages. He's very, very clever. Jeremy is an Englishman at Harvard Business School, opened his firm in the late 60s, and has been one of the most successful money managers. He's a sort of like sharper, more ironic, more candid, more outspoken Warren Buffett. He's a value investor, but it's the smartest book about the money management business over the last 60 years I've ever read. And he invented index funds 2 years before John Bogle at Vanguard did. He won the Institutional Investor Dubious Achievement Prize 2 years in a row because nobody started to use them. But anyway, at the end, he sort of writes about how capitalism is exhausted and has become a huge supporter of climate change. Next is Muhammad Hanif. I think this is his best novel since the Case of Exploding Mangoes, which Knopf published. It was longlisted for the Booker. It's a big, rich novel. The closest comp, when somebody was trying to make me come up with one, was Midnight's Children. It's a book about not unnamed country, but Pakistan, the death of a leader. It's religion, it's sex, it's gender bending. It's incredible book by, again, a major Pakistani writer. Terry Tempest Williams, I hope, requires no introduction to you. I'm going to just read you one line from a blurb we got from Robert McFarlane yesterday. The Glorians is like no book I have ever read. It has the fierceness and strangeness of light returning after an eclipse. It's a wonderful image, isn't it, if you've seen the eclipse when the light returns. This is about post-COVID, current situation. Terry's at the Harvard Divinity School a lot now, and her home out in Utah. Brilliant, brilliant Terry Tempest Williams book coming in March. Douglas Stewart, 31 people turned down Shuggie Bain. Peter Blackstock, our deputy publisher, bought it. We've sold over 300,000 copies. Young Mungo has also been incredibly successful. This is, I believe, his biggest, most broadly framed book. It's set on the Isle of Harris, where Harris Tweed is made, about a young man returning to his family after having left to go to London and make a bigger life. It's queer, coming home to the small island, small village, family, his secrets, family stories. It also really in-depth dive into the making of Tweed, which is really cool. Then we started a crime imprint, launched it in September because I've been publishing crime fiction for 25 years, and I decided to gather it all together. Two of the winter books are Mike Lawson, the Joe DeMarco novels. It's about the 15th one of those. I think it's one of the strongest one he's written. And then James Lee Burke had said that he had finished with Robichaux. He didn't want to write any more Dave Robichaux novels. And about a year ago, his agent said, "What would you think about a Dave Robichaux novel if Jim did one?" I went, "Oh my God, I'd be thrilled." So this is a new Dave Robichaux book coming in February. What else? I don't know. You guys have. Oh, how do I go back? There we go. I discovered this British writer named Tim Sullivan. I hope you've heard of him. He's an extremely successful screenwriter who at the age of 58 took an online crime fiction writing course and wrote a crime novel. His agent, for whom he had made hundreds of thousands of dollars, he's written big movies, said, "I can't sell a first novel by a 58-year-old guy, forget it." So he self-published the first two, sold 200,000 copies. There are now 7 in print. They haven't been published here, only distributed. I'm doing all of them. I launched The Dentist in October, and I'm doing hardcover and trade paperback. So they're hardcover library editions, and then we're going to binge publish. So starting in January, we're doing 7 novels between or 6 novels January to June, and then we're doing the new one, which I'm editing right now, called The Tailor in August. They're terrific books. This is the best series that I have discovered since I discovered the Brunetti series and started publishing those. If you like this kind of book, neurodiverse detective, the best thing about these books, I think, is the secondary characters when they're fully formed and the relationship between the primary character. So I think I'm about time's up. One more. Oh, Ruby Falls, Jen Phillips's book. I'm from Tennessee, and I know what Ruby Falls is. I don't know if there are any Southerners in the room, but it's a big waterfall inside Lookout Mountain that a guy turned into a tourist attraction in the late 20s. And this is the story of that. Well, it's a mystery set around that. In fact, it's a locked room mystery, except the locked room is a cave. 5 people go down with this Houdini-like sort of Uri Geller type guy who's going to find a hidden object. They're locked in the cave, and one of them dies, and then the others are trying to get out. But it's got that great Depression era sort of historical, wonderful locked room mystery. And if you're from the Southeast, you absolutely know what Ruby Falls is, because farmers painted their barns red with white lettering to advertise it. So thank you for your attention. And if you want the books, Deb can provide them, right? Am I done? Okay. Thank you.
I'm Katie Vaughn. I'm the marketing manager at Bloomsbury. I'm very excited to tell you about some of our upcoming titles for this winter and early spring. My email is here, but also on our handouts if you would like to reach out to me with galley requests or to sign up for our librarian newsletter. We host a lot of giveaways and give a lot of great updates, or you can just reach out to say hi. But for now, I will jump right in. And here are some titles coming soon, the first of which is A Case of Life and Limb, which comes out later this month on the 18th, just in time for some cozy holiday reading. This is the next installment in Sally Smith's Trials of Gabriel Ward series, following A Case of Mice and Murder, which you might be familiar with. And in this new story, our reluctant sleuth barrister, Gabriel Ward, is tasked with finding the culprit of yet another grisly crime in the Inner Temple. It's Christmas Eve, 1901, and he's hard at work on a legal case when the temple treasurer receives a severed hand in the post. Someone's holding a grudge that has already led to at least 1 death, but now it's up to Gabriel and Constable Wright of the City of London Police to find out who. In their starred review, PW says Smith keeps things delightfully unpredictable, elegant prose, expert pacing, and a well-drawn protagonist. And then in December, we have the latest from the author and translator of the beloved international bestseller, Welcome to the Hanumdong Bookshop. This is Every Day I Read, 53 Ways to Get Closer to Books, in which Hwang Bo-reum contemplates what living a life immersed in reading really means. It's a heartfelt invitation to reflect on your relationship with reading and celebrate the joys of books that goes beyond the usual questions of what to read and how often, and instead explores the relationship between reading and writing, when to turn to a bestseller versus browse the corners of a bookstore, the value of reading outside of your favorite genre, falling in love with book characters, and much more. It also includes a treasure trove of book recommendations blended seamlessly throughout, and it's the perfect next read for both dedicated and aspiring readers, especially for New Year's. And then in January, we have Being Thomas Jefferson, An Intimate History by Andrew Burstein. This is the deepest dive yet into the heart and soul, secret affairs, and unexplored alliances and bitter feuds of a generally worshipped but intermittently reviled American icon. Presenting a society that encouraged separation between public and private, appearance and essence, Burstein paints a dramatic picture of early American culture and brings us closer to Jefferson's life and thought than ever before. Fred Kaplan, the author of John Quincy Adams' American Visionary, calls Being Thomas Jefferson an exciting, sensitive, and perceptive probe into the hidden Jefferson, touchingly personal and succinct. And then on the same day, something very different, we'll have I Could Be Famous, which is a magnetic debut story collection following 10 ambitious women and 1 male superstar as they pursue their desires, however diluted, for more. From the dazzling to the mundane, Sidney Wren's unnervingly astute stories hold a mirror to our obsession with how we're perceived and our ache to be adored. Jonathan D. calls Wren's voice made for this moment and for those coming of age within it, and George Saunders calls the collection a terrific debut, fresh, original, and surprising. And then next we have The House of Barbary by the author of Queen Hereafter, Isabel Schuler. This is a loose retelling of Bluebeard set in 17th century Switzerland. Beatrice Barbary has been raised to believe that while education will set her mind free, there are some questions that are better left unanswered. But when her father, one of the most powerful men in Bern, is brutally murdered in their own home, she's left reeling, unprotected, and vulnerable. Plunging in headfirst to the mysterious circumstances surrounding her father and her own upbringing, Beatrice discovers the Order of St. Eve and the violent secrets they've been hiding her entire life. Following her pursuit of justice and revenge, this is a fierce feminist historical fiction novel perfect for readers of Sarah Penner and Jessie Burton. And then changing gears again, next we have The Deserving, What the Lives of the Condemned Tell Us About American Justice, featuring a foreword by Sister Helen Prejean. Author Elizabeth Bartkessian works with criminal defense teams as a mitigation specialist. She isn't part of the Innocence Project. Her clients are often legally guilty and often of terrible crimes. Rather, her job is to spend hundreds of hours per case talking to the parents, siblings, teachers, neighbors of a defendant, situating their crimes in context. In The Deserving, she weaves powerful, gripping stories from her extraordinary career into an inspiring argument for dignity in American justice. She contends that we cannot hold her clients solely responsible for their actions, nor can we continue to stomach harsh penalties that deny real justice to perpetrators and victims alike, offering a compelling and hope-filled vision for true rehabilitation replacing retribution. And then next, we have Every Happiness, a novel by Rena Shaw. This is an unforgettable debut that explores the ties that bind 2 women across decades and continents, despite rivalry, class difference, and the conflicting needs of family and self. Deepa and Ruchi are 12 years old when they first meet at their Catholic school in India, but their connection is swift and lasting. As the 2 girls grow up and face their family's expectations and the limits of their ambitions, their friendship is marked by intimacy, jealousy, and suppressed desire. It explores the slippery edges of a lifelong friendship and the invisible threads that bind us, sometimes painfully, to those we love the most. And Elizabeth McCracken calls the characters astonishingly alive, lovable, aggravating, and real. And then next, we have a book I'm very excited about personally. It's The Blood Countess, Murder, Betrayal, and the Making of a Monster from the best-selling author of The Dark Queens, Shelley Puhak. This is a gripping work of true crime and feminist history about the woman alleged to be the world's most prolific female serial killer. Elizabeth Bathory, also known as the Blood Countess, was said to have tortured and killed as many as 650 girls in her castle and even bathed in their blood. But despite these claims, some have wondered if the Countess herself was a victim of one of the most successful disinformation campaigns known to history. Shelley Puhak traces the Countess's downfall, bringing to life an assertive woman leader in a world sliding into anti-scientific reactionary darkness, rendering a vivid portrait of history's most dangerous woman and revealing just how far it will go to destroy a woman in power. And then another book that I'm very, very excited about, we have Honeysuckle by debut author Bar Friedman Tell. This is a Gothic botanical, darkly enchanting novel, which is a loose reimagining of the story of Blodeuwedd from Welsh mythology, following a lonely boy named Rory, whose sister makes him a playmate made entirely of words and forest flora, a girl named Day. Rory couldn't be happier until he learns that Day is a short-lived creature. At the end of each season, she must be woven back together with new seasonal elements or fall gruesomely apart. As Rory and Day grow older and the line between friendship and romance begins to blur, Rory becomes desperate to break the cycle of bloom and decay. But the further he pushes his experiments, the more Day begins to wonder how much control she really has over her own fragile life. New York Times bestselling author Danielle Valentine calls Honeysuckle equal parts fairy tale and nightmare, beautiful and terrifying, innocent and disturbed, a deeply impressive debut. And then finally, on this next slide, we have all of these fantastic titles on deck as well. The Chosen and the Damned, Native Americans and the Making of Race in the United States is the latest from This Land is Their Land author David J. Silverman, restoring the defining role Native people have played to our national history. Rail Song from Man Asian Prize shortlisted author Rahul Bhattacharya is the story of one woman's coming of age and a beautifully complex love letter to the Indian Railways. Why Fly, Seeking Awe, Healing, and Our True Selves in the Sky is the latest from bestselling author of Tough Broad and the Gutsy Girl, Caroline Paul, examining the ways flight, like love, confounds yet transforms us, touching on her own experience with divorce and escaping into the skies. The Bodybuilders by Albertine Clark is a speculative literary debut about the frayed borders between our bodies and minds. And audition author Katie Kitamura says, I felt a shiver of admiration as I read every page. And finally, Tailbone by Chae Yun is a heartrending debut novel about a teenager who runs away from her abusive home to live in a boarding house for single women as a global financial crash threatens the people of Seoul. And on the next slide, that's it for me. Thank you for listening. Please do feel free to reach out with any questions.
Hey everyone, I'm Rudy Martinez from Soho Press. Thanks again for having me. Yeah, great. Okay. First, the only title that I'm going to be presenting from our Soho Press literary fiction imprint, Summer of the Serpent, by Mexican author Cecilia Eudave, and translated from the Spanish by Robin Myers. This is a slim, strange little novel rooted in the current Latin American literary wave known as La Narrativa de lo Inusual, or Narrative of the Unusual, a movement that's defined by socially conscious stories of everyday life that are sharpened and focused by the deployment of the unreal or the fantastic or the magical. So Summer of the Serpent is set during a single summer in Guadalajara in 1977 and revolves around a young family living a comfortable middle-class life on the precipice of major change. Dissolution, disenchantment, death are coming, but for now we're presented with strange vignettes of ordinary life. Carnival sideshows, sadistic neighbors, ghosts, wandering snakes, people turning gray. These stories are told by a cast of narrators, children and adults, alive and dead, visible and invisible, and the end result is deeply human, and despite its brevity and fragmented structure, it's a novel that feels really massive and intricately arranged. Give this to readers who are interested in translated literature, but also specifically authors like Daniela Tarazona, Samantha Schweblin, Giovanna Rivera, and Mariana Enriquez. The Summer of the Serpent. Next up, Jackson Alone. This is from our Soho Crime imprint. This is a new novel translated from Japanese by author Jose Ando. So Soho Crime, some of you may know, has a pretty rich history of publishing Japanese crime fiction, both classic and contemporary. But this is a striking departure from much of what we have in the catalog already, and it delivers a really singular angle in on contemporary Japanese society. So this tells the story of a group of half Japanese, half Black queer men who've all been the targets of an embarrassing revenge porn scheme. And they decide to band together, find out who's responsible, and in the meantime get some payback on a few other people who've wronged them, boyfriends, bosses, people like this. And they do so by exploiting the fact that no one can seem to tell them apart. So this is a short little gut punch of a novel. It's deadpan, it's angry, it's tender, it's really weird. It's a frank exploration of identity, race, and queerness in contemporary Japan that announces Jose as a singular new talent in the global literary scene. That's Jackson Alone. Next up, A Bad, Bad Place. So this is a debut literary mystery from Scottish author Frances Crawford. I love this book. It is probably my favorite book off our entire spring list, any imprint. It's lively and heartfelt and creepy and totally suffused with the specificity of its setting. So it opens in 1979 in the working class Glasgow neighborhood of Postle Park. And it's there we meet this 12-year-old girl, Janie. She's walking her dog near an abandoned railway, and she finds the body of a murdered woman who's later identified as the daughter of a notorious Glasgow gang member. So this is obviously a very traumatizing experience. Janie loses pieces of that day from her memory, but she's also this really cool, creative, tough, driven little girl, and she wants to honor the memory of this dead woman. And the way that she does that is kind of by building this sort of like a scrapbook in her memory. And in doing that, in kind of working to build this, memorial piece, she kind of starts investigating in her own neighborhood. But we also get the perspective of her grandmother, whose name is Maggie. And this death is a reminder of tragedies in her own family's history. And as the gossip begins to start to fly around the pub where Maggie works, and her instinct to protect her granddaughter kind of kicks in, she starts poking around too. So this one is a poignant coming-of-age story. It's a compassionate portrait of a really specific Glaswegian community. There's this amazing dialect that's deployed that's a little opaque at first, and then once it clicks, it's incredible. It's a riveting mystery. Give it to readers of God of the Woods, fans of Val McDermid, and ton of French. That's A Bad, Bad Place. First of what I hope is many, many mysteries from Francis Crawford. Next up, What Boys Learn, a twisty, intense new psychological thriller from Andromeda Romano Lax. You may know her from her 2024 thriller release, The Deepest Lake. What Boys Learn follows Abby Russo, a high school guidance counselor at a small private school that's just been rocked by the deaths of two girls who were enrolled as students. It's widely assumed that these two young women committed suicide, and because of Abby's closeness with both of them, her competence as a school counselor is called into question. But police soon settle on the idea that these deaths are in fact suspicious, and Abby's worries begin to take on this whole new cast when she starts to reconsider her own teenage son Ben's suspicious behavior and seemingly emotionless reaction to his own classmate's death. Abby obviously doesn't want to believe that her son could do anything terrible, but she also recognizes these patterns of problematic behavior because of her training as a counselor, but also because her own brother Owen is in prison for crimes he committed when he was just a little bit older than Ben is now. So with the fear of knowing the truth might actually tear her family apart, Abby begins to look for answers about what's happened to these two girls. It is a jaw-dropping thriller. It's contending with some very raw, very important topics circulating in media and popular culture. Things like legacies of violence, toxic masculinity, dark internet-born ideologies, fears around the gaps in outcomes for boys and girls educationally, professionally, socially. This one's for fans of Lisa Jewell, Lucy Foley, Claire McIntosh, anyone who enjoyed the Netflix original series Adolescence. That's What Boys Learn. Next up, new historical thriller, or mystery rather, from Sujata Massey. This is in her Perveen mystery series set in 1920s India. This is The Star from Calcutta. As ever, Sujata is delivering a richly detailed, meticulously researched mystery starring India's first female solicitor. So this novel finds Perveen working on behalf of India's biggest silent film star, a woman named Rokhana, in an era that came just before Bollywood. Rokhana is attempting to disentangle her family's film company from a studio contract in which her talent is the most important part. As Perveen, digs into Rokhana's glamorous world, she finds herself in attendance at an exclusive screening of a big budget new film with her best friend Alice, who happens to be a movie buff. But as the event comes to a close, one of the guests, a film critic, is found dead, and Rokhana is nowhere to be found. Now, with a different legal obligation to her client to protect them in the face of what appears to be a murder investigation, Perveen begins to poke around, finding this web of blackmail, deceit, affairs, and perhaps worst of all, her best friend Alice seems to be keeping a secret about the night of the murder. This series, which began with The Widows of Malabar Hill, has only gotten better, and this outing is suffused with the glitz and charm of old Indian cinema. It's an absolute must-read for fans of Bollywood, but also historical mysteries in general. Kate Quinn, Charles Todd, Laurie King, Jacqueline Winspear. That's The Star from Calcutta by Sujata Massey. Finally, I just want to call attention to a few more ongoing series from our Soho Crime imprint that could be of interest. Crown City by Naomi Hirahara. This is the next book in her series of Japantown mysteries set in Japanese American enclaves all over the US and across time. So this installment is set in Pasadena in the early 1900s. Great series. Please check it out. Agnes Sharp and the Wedding to Die For by Leonie Swan. This is the last installment in the Agnes Sharp series of mysteries. It's about this group of older folks who've all chosen to live together in this crumbling English estate that they call Sunset Hall. This is a group who has no qualms about hiding a body. They have no interest in asking the police for help about pretty much anything. It's dark, it's funny, it's a lot of fun. And again, the third in a series, and then, that's it. Check it out at the beginning too. Dead Can't Make a Living, Edlin, sorry, I thought it was it. Noodle stand operator in Taipei's bustling night market who has a knack for ending up in the middle of mysteries, despite desperately wanting to just sell noodles. That's Edlin's Dead Can't Make a Living. I'm Rudy, thanks so much for having me.
Does it show up behind me? Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Margo McCoy with Macmillan. Before we get started, here are some of the ways that you can get in touch with us online. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about any of the books I'm talking about today. Many of the titles, I think I went back. I went too many slides. There we are. Many of the titles we'll be talking about today already are or will be available to read on Edelweiss. If you're not already whitelisted for automatic downloads, send us an email at the email address on the screen and we will get you set up. And please feel free to join us on Mondays at 4 p.m. for our Happy F Hour series where we talk about all of the upcoming books we are excited about. And now on to the books. First up is Lost Lands by Madeline Cash. This debut follows the messy Flynn family. The parents' marriage is unraveling and their daughters are also spiraling. One is dating a man named Warcrime Wes, another is pen pals with an online terrorist, and the youngest is convinced the town is under surveillance. One of the daughters' obsession with a shading shipping magnet in a mysterious container drags the Flynns into a criminal conspiracy, chaos, and unexpected connection ensue. Irreverent, tender, and wildly funny, this is a fresh spin on family dysfunction with a satirical bite. Moving between the voices of the family and those around them, Lost Lands is an addictive family saga for the 21st century, all held together with crazy glue. Next is Greta Gets the Girl by Melissa Marr. This is a steamy tale of forbidden romance and hidden identities. An editor on the rise who has sworn off relationships since getting her heart broken uses an app for casual hookups. But then her latest hookup, one that had potential to become something more, turns out to be an up-and-coming author that she had just signed. When family expectations threaten to intervene, she'll have to decide between her heart and her career. The combination of publishing drama, modern lesbian culture, and the beats of a rom-com make this perfect for readers looking for a high-heat contemporary romance like Mistakes Were Made or One Last Stop. Next is If I Ruled the World by Amy DuBois Barnett. In 1999, Nikki Rose, the sole Black editor at a prestigious fashion magazine, quits after being told Black girls don't sell magazines. She takes over Sugar, a struggling hip-hop magazine, with 6 months to save it and her dreams. Navigating a new world, Nikki works tirelessly, partying with influential figures and proving her leadership. This is a fast-paced, juicy debut that peeks behind the curtain at the cutthroat world of hip-hop and the glamorous magazine scene in the late 90s, written by the ultimate insider. Amy DuBois Barnett earned national acclaim as the editor-in-chief of Honey, Ebony, and Teen People, where she made history as the first Black woman to helm a major mainstream US magazine. She's the perfect person to write this novel, and the pages are packed with immersive details and Easter eggs for hip-hop fans. Next is Dirty Metal by Alison Lamothe. This gritty crime novel set in New York City in 1992 follows a tenacious reporter for a gossip tabloid with a big black mark on her record from her last crime story, and a pill addiction that she's hoping will erase the memory. Her new assignment is to cover Russian criminals arriving in Brighton Beach, but her own old beat is calling to her after she learns of a murder that the cops want to ignore. Juggling both stories, she must fight the pull of her addiction and the men in her way to find the truth and redemption for herself and the victims. This is darkly funny with a sarcastic and sharp main character that you will love to read about. Next is Superfan by Jenny Tingwei Zhang. This follows a freshman in college who discovers a boy band, throws herself into the fandom, and becomes obsessed with one of its members. And when a scandal threatens the singer's career, she believes that she is the only one who can save him. But his secret is darker than anyone can imagine, and being in the band is his chance to escape the past. until a devoted fan threatens to destroy everything. This love letter to stan culture, pop music, boy bands, and fandoms explores parasocial relationships with nuance and empathy and truly seeks to understand what drives our obsessions. Next is Bad Asians by Lillian Lee. This follows a group of friends who have been told their entire lives that success is guaranteed by a simple checklist. They worked hard, they got A's, and they attended a good university, only to graduate into the Great Recession of 2008. When the former neighborhood golden child asked to make a documentary about the crew, they say yes, thinking it will never see the light of day. But then it goes viral, and they are flung even further off course from the lives they'd always imagined. As the video tears them apart, the friends must face harsh truths about themselves. You've got a tale of friendship and coming of age, internet content gone out of control, family expectations, and a great, flawed, and relatable group of characters. Next is The Red Winter by Cameron Sullivan. Debut author Cameron Sullivan tells the story of the first werewolf. It's the early 1800s, and a monster stalks the French countryside. A monster hunter is called in to finish what he started 20 years ago when the creature first appeared, and now he'll contend with unfinished business, his demonic counterpart, and the inquisitorial eye of the French clergy, while the country itself teeters on the edge of revolution. This folktale retelling of the story of the Beast of Gabodin blends the meticulously researched world-building of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell with the dark fantasy sensibilities of Interview with the Vampire. Next up is Lady Tremaine by Rachel Hochhauser. Who doesn't love a feminist retelling? This is a breathtaking reimagining of Cinderella as told through the eyes of its iconic evil stepmother, revealing a propulsive love story about the lengths a mother will go for her children. Narratives that shift the lens on previously maligned women are book club favorites, and I'd also hand this one to any fans of titles that reimagine a literary figure in a fresh new way. Think The Wife Upstairs, Circe, Wicked, just to name a few. Next up is The Survivor by Andrew Reed. Fired on his first day at his new job in New York City, a man boards the one train and immediately starts receiving threatening texts from an anonymous killer who has already killed 2 people on the train, instructing him to follow their orders or else. As the hijacked train speeds up town, the secret to the killer's motive lies in the target's own history and why he was chosen. Full of intense action and smart twists, this heart-pounding, breathtaking thriller will take you on a ride you'll never forget, and probably make you not want to go home on the train today. Next up is One Plate at a Time by Demi Lovato. This next one is Grammy-nominated singer, actor, and advocate Demi Lovato's cookbook, One Plate at a Time. In this, Demi shares over 80 joy-filled recipes inspired by her personal journey to healing her relationship with food. Whether you're a Demi fan or just looking for a more compassionate, guilt-free approach to cooking, this book is a welcome guide to reconnecting with food. It's filled with easy, satisfying recipes and honest reflections that make the kitchen feel like a place of empowerment and self-love. Next is The Kings of Hollywood by Paul Fisher. This is the untold, intimate story of how 3 young visionaries, Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg, revolutionized American cinema, creating some of the most iconic films in history. Based on interviews with crews, friends, family members, neighbors, and agents, this book dives deep into the period of 1969 to 1984, connecting the filmmakers' personal lives and career milestones to show how this time in film history laid the foundation for the film ecosystem of today. It's perfect for film buffs, fans of memoirs and biographies, and anyone interested in history and old Hollywood. Right, next is Love by the Book by Jessica George. The author of Mame returns with a funny, moving story about the friendship between 2 women at a crossroads in their 30s. It asks the question, what if female friendship was given the rom-com treatment? Remy is a debut novelist who has lost her creative inspiration, along with her friends who have all moved on with their lives. Simone, a successful teacher with a lucrative side hustle, becomes isolated when her family discovers the true nature of her work. After the 2 literally run into each other at a bookstore, initial prickliness slowly gives way to a friendship. Despite their secrets, they may be the missing piece each other needs. This explores the restorative power of female friendship and platonic love, and tackles issues such as mental health, familial duty, and female sexuality. Next is A Killer in the Family by Amina Maud. Mumbai native Ali Azim marries Mariam Khan, daughter of New York real estate tycoon Abbas Khan, one of the richest men in New York. After moving to the US, Ali is drawn into a lavish world, but Mariam's sister claims that their father is covering up sinister deeds. Despite Mariam's warning that her sister can't be trusted, Ali investigates the Khan family and must decide if the immense wealth is worth the price as he uncovers the truth. This wealthy family drama of succession and Crazy Rich Asians meets the darkly comic thriller vibes of My Sister the Serial Killer in this intoxicating mystery set among New York City's most elite residents. And last but not least, we have Last Night in Brooklyn by Xochitl Gonzalez, the best-selling author of Anita de Monte Last, and Olga Dies Dreaming. Here, she delivers a captivating story about a young woman whose life becomes ensnared in her glamorous neighbor's secret past, laying bare the mounting tensions of class and identity at play in a rapidly gentrifying early 2000s Fort Greene, Brooklyn. This is a gender-swapped and diversified take on The Great Gatsby and translates those power struggles and complex family dynamics to the modern day. It asks what it would look like if Gatsby had been a woman. Would she want the same things or make the same choices? This is book club catnip with explorations of power, place, belonging, feminism, and the flawed pursuit of the American dream. And that is it from me. Please reach out if you have any questions, and I hope you've enjoyed the book. Thanks.
Those are the books, and that's the way it is on Thursday, November 6, 2025. Thanks again to our planning committee. We've had a wonderful day here.